Chapter 899. Zhu Zhangshun hadn't felt so uneasy for a long time. The old lady wanted to go back to Jing City, and her purpose was obvious. Once the Zhu family got involved in the Qin family, his career would be affected, which was what Zhu Zhangshun didn't want to see. Only by climbing higher and higher could he realize his ambition, which was a man's real ambition. Zhu Zhangshun had been walking on this road, and now he was going further and further. He didn't want to stop, but he had to face the reality. At this moment, only the old lady and Zhu Zhangshun were left in the living room. The others had left. After all, what they talked about was the Zhu family's secret, and they couldn't let outsiders know. If it was spread, it would definitely affect the Zhu family. The old lady had calmed down and was not as excited as before. She squinted at Zhu Zhangshun and said, "You know what happened to Qin Chang'an?" "Yes, we knew it from the beginning, but it has nothing to do with us," Zhu Zhangshun said honestly. The old lady continued to ask, "Did he and Qin Ran talk to you?" "Yes, we made it clear from the beginning that the Zhu family couldn't interfere in this matter. It's the Qin family's business, and they should solve it. Most people know why Qin Chang'an could get to where he is today. Now that something happened, he should pay the price," Zhu Zhangshun said calmly. The Qin family and the Zhu family had never contacted each other in these years, except for Qin Ran. Now that something happened to the Qin family, they couldn't let the Zhu family pay the price. The old lady was still calm. She asked in a low voice, "How did they react?" Although they were disappointed, they could understand. The Zhu family and the Qin family are not on the same path. The Zhu family can't be affected because of the Qin family, Zhu Zhangshun explained. The old lady sneered, "How? Will it affect your career? Are you so selfish? Are you so heartless? They are still children. Can't you take care of them?" Zhu Zhangshun was afraid that the old lady would say so, so he said, "Mom, do you think we are that kind of people? If what Qin Chang'an did was supported by our Zhu family, now that something bad has happened, our Zhu family will certainly not shirk the responsibility. However, how has Qin Chang'an interacted with us all these years? He and our Zhu family are not in the same circle. I have long known that something bad will happen to him sooner or later. Now that something bad has happened, we can't let our Zhu family clean up the mess, can we?" The old lady took a deep breath. She didn't have much interest in that disappointing son-in-law. The Zhu family didn't have much contact with him these years. Whatever he did had nothing to do with the Zhu family. Now that something had happened, the Zhu family naturally shouldn't be responsible. The old lady said casually, "I know that. I don't care about him. I'm just worried about my poor grandson and granddaughter. Mom, don't worry. No matter what, Qin Ran and Qin Xing are children of the Zhu family. Of course, we won't leave them alone." Zhu Zhangshun tried to ease the atmosphere. Of course, he knew what the old lady was thinking. The old lady suddenly asked curiously, "Didn't Qin Chang'an look for you?" "No," Zhu Zhangshun said quietly. "Actually, he didn't look for Qin Chang'an from the beginning to the end. Although the Zhu family didn't have much contact with Qin Chang'an these years, and although Qin Chang'an was in trouble now, Zhu Zhangshun still admired Qin Chang'an. Qin Chang'an was not an ordinary man, who could live like a fish in water in Siju City. God knew how many senior officials and ministers were Qin Chang'an's distinguished guests. The old lady snorted coldly and said, "At least you have some backbone." Zhu Zhangshun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The old lady had complained about Qin Chang'an for a long time. But in the past, she had liked this son-in-law very much. However, because of what happened later, no one wanted to see the Zhu family resented the Qin family. The old lady had already known what she needed to know. There was one last thing she wanted to know. She stared at Zhu Zhangshun and said, "In this case, why did you hide it from me? Did you plan to lie to me together?" Zhu Zhangshun was not nervous. He had expected that the old lady would think in this way. He said in a low voice, "Mom, we didn't hide it from you. We were just afraid that you would be emotional if you knew it. Everyone knows your current physical condition, so we kept this tacit understanding. The old lady didn't want to continue asking about this. What could she do by asking so much? It must be her baby daughter's idea. They were all her children, and they did it for her own good. She couldn't beat or scold them. Moreover, she was not an unreasonable old fool. She knew very well what they were thinking and worrying about. Wasn't it for the good of the Zhu family? The old lady waved her hand disinterestedly and said, "Okay, I know what I need to know. There's nothing else. Go back quickly. Don't delay the business." "Mom, are you going back to Beijing?" Zhu Zhangshun was very concerned. The old lady replied calmly, "Yes, I'm going back to Beijing. It has nothing to do with this. I just want to go back to see my old friends and go back to see my baby granddaughter and grandson. They don't have time to see me, but I have time to see them. Moreover, I haven't been back for so many years. You won't stop me, will you?" Zhu Zhangshun felt a little helpless. It turned out that after talking for so long, the old lady still didn't give up the idea of going back. However, he was sober enough. At least he calmed the old lady down. Otherwise, he was really afraid that there would be an accident. Moreover, when he finished talking with the old lady didn't get angry, which meant that he had made the right bet. However, he was also very clear that since the old lady had made up her mind, there was no need for him to say anything more, because nothing he said could change the old lady's decision. However, he still compromised and said, "Mom, you go back first. I won't stop you. Can you go back after Qingwen comes back? With her accompanying you, we will be relieved." Zhu Zhangshun was afraid that the old lady wouldn't agree, so he waited for the old lady's decision anxiously. Unexpectedly, the old lady nodded and agreed without hesitation. "Okay, then I'll wait for Qingwen to come back." Zhu Zhangshun let out a long sigh of relief. His task had been completed. He successfully calmed the old lady down. The rest of the matter would be discussed after his wife, Zhu Qingwen, came back. On the way back from the Olympic Park in Beijing, Qin Sheng kept rubbing his injured shoulder. He had not seen the woman's face from the beginning to the end. Today, she had taught him a lesson. This woman's strength was not simple, and her family background was not simple either. He did not know where she had come from. Chang Baji had witnessed the scene just now. Even he did not see what the woman looked like. Maybe it was because he was far away from her. Chang Baji asked casually, "Are you all right?" Qin Sheng shook his head and said, "I'm fine. It's just a minor injury. She did not really want to hurt me. Otherwise, I would probably have hurt my muscles and bones." Chang Baji asked curiously, "Who on earth is she?" There were not many people who could make Chang Baji so interested, such as the trusted subordinate of Third Master Wu in Zhujiang, who had followed him for many years, the man who had come out of the alley outside the Yang family 2 days ago, and the woman today. Qin Sheng frowned and said, "I don't know." Qin Sheng frowned as he said, "I don't know either. She said she was the guardian of the Qin family, but I don't really believe it. However, her appearance is of no help to the Qin family now." Chang Baji nodded silently and said, "Oh, as long as he is not an enemy, he is definitely not weaker than me." Qin Sheng did not think about this anymore. He was more concerned about how to get information. At this moment, no one would do anything to him. Therefore, he did not need this woman's protection. Moreover, there were Chang Baji and the others. After coming back to his senses, Qin Sheng called the old master of the He family. He wanted the old master of the He family to think of a way to get information about the old man through his connections. So far, everyone was avoiding the Qin family. Qin Sheng really did not know who to look for. Unexpectedly, old master He refused, which made Qin Sheng very surprised. However, old master He gave a reason that Qin Sheng could not refute. That was, at present, it was not suitable for the He family to be too high profile. Otherwise, it would arouse the disgust of many people, which was not conducive to their future operations. Even if the He family wanted to sacrifice for the Qin family, it had to be worthwhile. Since Old Master He said so, Qin Shing could not refuse. He had no choice but to nod helplessly. After contacting all the necessary people, it still did not work. Qin Shing had no choice but to go back to the West Mountain villa of the Qin family. It was said that the alley of the Qin family's Sihiyuan had been crowded with reporters from all walks of life. They all wanted to get first-hand information or news about the Qin family. If they could capture the relevant members of the Qin family, it would be even more amazing. Brother Wu, who liked to browse Weibo and read the headlines, also told Qin Shing that the news about the Qin family and the Chang and family had been spreading like crazy since this afternoon. Some people even dug out the news about Qin Shing and Qin Ran. Although it was not so penetrating, it was not a good sign. The direction of the public opinion also represented the intention of some people. If the direction of the public opinion was opposite to their intention, the public opinion would naturally be controlled. Anyway, the Qin family and the Chang and family were now in the limelight. At night, when Qin Shing returned to the West Mountain villa of the Qin family, his aunt was in the study talking on the phone. His sister Qin Ran had not come back yet. Why did Qin Ran not come back so late at night? Because in order to get some information, Qin Ran had risked her face to beg Ma Weiyang's father. Ma Weiyang had risked her life for Qin Ran, her best friend of more than 20 years. She did not want to see Qin Ran so miserable. Not everyone could meet Ma Weiyang's father. If Qin Ran took the initiative to meet him, it was estimated that the tycoon would not meet her at all. After all, everyone would try to avoid Qin Chang'an, let alone take the initiative to provoke him. Therefore, Qin Ran could only ask Ma Weiyang for help. In the end, Ma Weiyang could only show up in person and take Qin Ran to meet her old master. How could Ma Weiyang not know about these things? She was not a clueless woman. It was precisely because she knew everything that she had made up her mind to make this decision. This was because Qin Ran, her friend, was really important to her. In the study of the West Mountain Villa, Zhao Anji dialed the long-lost phone number again. Today, she had asked a lot of people and begged a lot of people. In the end, she was very helpless. She wanted to call that man and question him. How long did he want to be a turtle? Chapter 900. The Qin family had been rooted in Siju City for several generations. However, it seemed that every 20 years, the Qin family would face a calamity. No one knew whether it was a coincidence or fate. The old master had experienced it twice in the past. Now, Qin Chang'an was also going through it for the second time. As for Qin Shing, it was his first time. Every time, the Qin family would pay a heavy price. However, they could get through it quietly every time. Every time, the Qin family would stand up again. Zhao Anji was born into a wealthy family. She absolutely worshipped Qin Changxing when he was young. At that time, Qin Changxing was high-spirited and was considered one of the best among the younger generation in Siju City. It was just that he was not as famous as sixth uncle. After all, sixth uncle's family background determined his starting point. Old Master Zhao also admired Qin Changxing's talent, so he agreed to this marriage. Although Old Master Qin had a wide network in Siju City back then, most people didn't think that this was a good match. However, who asked Zhao Anji to like him? After getting married, Qin Changxing did not disappoint Zhao Anji. After he entered the official career, he showed his strong ability, which made many old leaders admire him. Moreover, in that special era, outstanding young people were always put in important positions, and Qin Changxing was one of them. Just like that, Qin Changxing walked further and further on his path. More and more people placed their bets on Qin Changxing. They felt that Qin Changxing would one day stand at a high enough position. Just like that, it lasted until that storm. The storm was huge and involved many people. The Qin family was not just one of them. However, the Qin family was targeted. Everyone knew the final result. Qin Chongqing had chosen a path that no one had expected. From then on, Qin Chongqing had completely disappointed Zhao Anji. So many years had passed, and Zhao Anji didn't want to care about their grudges anymore. The Qin family was once again in trouble, and as a man of the Qin family, Zhao Anji felt that Qin Chongqing had to stand up. This was because he was also a man of the Qin family, and he couldn't just watch the Qin family fall into the abyss. If Qin Chongqing still chose to be a coward, Zhao Anji would be completely disappointed. After this disappointment there would be despair. Then, once the Qin family's matter was settled, Zhao Anji would choose to leave the country with her daughter and never come back. She dialed the number without any emotional fluctuations. Even if Qin Chongqing did not pick up the phone, Zhao Anji no longer had any psychological burden. After all, she had already prepared herself for the worst. Fortunately, Qin Chongqing did not disappoint her. Not long after, Qin Chongqing picked up the phone. Although the two had been separated for so long, they were still familiar with each other. Without any pleasantries, Zhao Anji asked directly, "How long is this coward going to stop?" Qin Chongqing shook his head and smiled bitterly as he said, "I already know what happened in Chang'an." Understood? And then? Did he only know? You are a man of the Qin family. Everyone in the Qin family is working hard for the Qin family. What are you doing? Are you just going to watch people bully us orphans and widows? Doesn't your conscience hurt? The calmer Qin Chongqing was, the more excited Zhao Anji was. She was just a woman. Although she had made some friends in Siju City, so many years had passed. Would they help her? Moreover, her maiden family had long lost their power. If her old father was still alive or her older brother was powerful, would she need to be so humble? Who was she doing this for? It was all for the Qin family. As for Qin Sheng and Qin Ran, the Zhu family had already said that they would not help them. How capable could these two children be? Seeing them so tired and mentally exhausted every day, how could Zhao Anji not feel sorry for them? Qin Chongqing was calm. No one would make him feel anything. He waited until Zhao Anji finished speaking before replying. "Anji, wait a little longer. It's not time yet." "Not time yet? When is it?" Zhao Anji roared. Qin Chongqing said faintly, "When it's time, I will naturally go back. I think you just want to be a coward. Are you going to wait until everything is settled before you come back? What can we do when the time comes? Qin Chongqing, let me tell you, after this, I will take Yaya back to Canada. Don't even think about seeing her in this life," Zhao Anji threatened angrily. Qin Chongqing did not know how to explain to Zhao Anji. Should he say that he was ready, but it was not time yet? There were some things that Zhao Anji did not understand. "Give me some time." Qin Chongqing could only say so. When Zhao Anji heard this, she did not get angry. Instead, she laughed and said, "Give you some time? I gave you more than 20 years. What did you give me in return? Do you know? The thing that I regret the most in my life is choosing you." "Anji," Qin Chongqing said helplessly. Zhao Anji let out a long sigh and said, "Forget it, I won't say anything. Maybe it was a mistake for me to come back. This is your Qin family's matter. What does it have to do with me? Qin Chongqing, this is the last time I call you. Let's stop here for the rest of our lives. Goodbye." After saying the last sentence, Zhao Anji hung up the phone completely. Qin Chongqing wanted to say a few more words, but there was only a busy tone coming from the phone. After Zhao Anji hung up the phone, she sat on the sofa and covered her face with tears. She was under too much pressure. She did not do these things for others to see. She just did not want to let these children down. After all, she was the only one they could rely on now. Qin Sheng stood outside the study for a long time, but he did not have the courage to knock on the door. Outside the study, Qin Sheng stood for a long time, but he did not have the courage to knock on the door. He heard the angry voice of the aunt and heard her sobbing. He suddenly felt that he was very useless. He had done a lot of things, but it was useless. This really made him feel very frustrated. Qin Sheng did not have the courage to go in, nor did he know how to comfort the aunt. He turned around and left with an ugly face. The only thing he could do was to calm himself down. When Qin Sheng walked to the staircase, his sister came back. He stopped and did not go downstairs immediately. He saw his sister sitting down and leaning on the sofa, looking very tired. This really made Qin Sheng's heart ache. He wanted to escape, but he did not know how. In the end, he could only bite the bullet and walk down. When he was about to reach his sister, he said in a low voice, "Sister, you're back." Hearing Qin Sheng's voice, Qin Ran immediately returned to normal. She quickly got up and said with a smile, "I thought you were not back yet." The Qin Ran at this moment was completely different from the Qin Ran just now. The Qin Ran just now was the real Qin Ran, and the Qin Ran at this moment was just the Qin Ran that Qin Ran wanted Qin Sheng to see. Life was very tiring, and he relied on acting for himself and acting for others. He especially noticed that his sister's eyes seemed to be swollen. Why? It could only be because she was crying like this. This impact made Qin Sheng confused again. He did not want to stay here, not even for a second. He quickly said, "Sister, I'm going out to buy some supper. What do you want to eat?" "Supper? Ask the kitchen to make whatever you want to eat. Why are you going out so late?" Qin Ran was a little confused. Qin Sheng smiled and said, "I don't want to bother them. I can go out to buy some. I can go out to get some fresh air." Qin Ran did not think much about it. She replied, "Then go. Remember to come back early. I don't want anything. How about losing weight these days?" If it was in the past, Qin Sheng might still make a few jokes with his sister, or feel distressed about losing weight. But today, Qin Sheng was not in any mood. He just nodded and left. As soon as Qin Sheng walked out of the villa, Qin Ran fell on the sofa again. She was like a deflated balloon, without any power. Qin Ran did not know what to say. She had tried her best, and Ma Weiyang had also helped her the last time. Although she had met Ma Weiyang's father, the result was not very satisfactory. Fortunately, Ma Weiyang had been by her side to help her. In addition, she had really broken down at that time. Ma Weiyang's father had promised to ask about this matter. But he would only ask and he would not interfere. Even so, Qin Ran was already satisfied. At the Marriott Hotel at the foot of Mount Wutai, Qin Chongqing stood on the balcony and looked at the endless Mount Wutai, lost in thought. This was the place he had stayed in for more than 20 years. It was very familiar but also very strange. A few days ago, he did not live in the temple anymore. He had also said goodbye to everyone in the temple. The big monk, who was like a brother and a master, smiled and nodded to him, saying that it was as he expected. As for the meaning behind this, Qin Chongqing could understand. Just as the old monk had said, his ties with the mortal world had not been severed. He did not belong here and would leave sooner or later. In the past, Qin Chongqing did not believe it, but now, he had to believe it. Qin Chongqing did not wear the monk's robe anymore. He wore very casual ordinary clothes. When he put on such clothes again, Qin Chongqing felt a little strange. He was not used to himself in the mirror, but he knew that it was himself. He had chosen to leave the mountain. He had no choice but to do so. If he still did not leave the mountain, he would be sorry to the ancestors of the Qin family. He would really be alone in the future. However, Qin Chongqing still wanted to wait a little longer. He already knew everything and was deducing everything. He felt that the Qin family's affairs were not so simple. Everything could not be seen only from one side. He did not think that this matter was only aimed at the Qin family. These years, the Qin family was indeed very prosperous under the management of his younger brother, Qin Chang'an. However, the Qin family was not qualified to be treated like this. In the past 2 days, he had studied a lot of things in the past few years in the Marriott Hotel. There were a few families who had been treated similarly to the Qin family, which family had not been prosperous in the past few years. They had always been successful in conquering the domestic market. In the foreign market, they were like local tycoons who were not short of money. They were just buying. The final result was that they were in debt, and there were internal and external troubles. However, the difference between the Qin family and the other families was that the Qin family's affairs were too complicated. It involved many aspects and many people. How could it be so simple? Therefore, Qin Chongqing did not think that this matter was aimed at the Qin family. He wanted to wait and see. What should happen had not happened yet. Therefore, he was not willing to be anxious. Moreover, he had an even deeper doubt, and that was that his younger brother was not as simple as he seemed. He also seemed to be waiting for something. Everyone wanted to kill him, but he did not reveal too many things about others, which was even more thought-provoking. Considering all the circumstances, Qin Chongqing could only think that the final moment of this drama had not arrived yet. He still needed to wait and wait. His younger brother, Qin Chang'an, was waiting. He was also waiting now. Chapter 901. A piece of heavy news woke many people up and affected many people. Many people would be involved in this storm, and their fates would be changed in the end. However, no matter how big the storm was, time would still roll on. It would not stop to wait for anyone. The day passed just like that. Some people added insult to injury, some people took advantage of the situation, some people stood and watched, and some people took advantage of the situation. The Qin family was the prey in everyone's eyes. In the end, no one knew whether they would be divided and eaten or killed. In the early hours of the morning, Qin Sheng, who was emotionally unstable, wandered on the street like a lonely ghost. He did not know where to go or who to look for. It seemed that no one would listen to his complaints and no one would understand what he had experienced. After all, most people in the world were ordinary people. What he had experienced had to be borne by himself. In the past, when he was at his loneliest, Su Qin grew up with him. Later, when he was at his most difficult time, Lin Su was there with him. But now, both of them were not by his side. He was alone. Maybe he just wanted to be alone. Except for Chang Baji, Qin Sheng did not let anyone follow him. It seemed to be a little dangerous in the current environment, but Qin Sheng did not care about that. Chang Baji was driving. Qin Sheng sat in the back and squinted at the heavy traffic outside the window. He did not tell Chang Baji where to go. Chang Baji just drove aimlessly. After a long time, when Qin Sheng saw a few food stalls by the roadside, he asked Chang Baji to stop. Qin Sheng did not know why he wanted to drink. He missed the barbecue in Xi'an more. He asked Chang Baji to wait in the car. He got off the car alone and went to the food stalls. He randomly found a seat and sat down. He ordered some barbecue and cold dishes and asked the boss to serve him 2 bottles of cold beer. He sat there alone and drank. Qin Sheng was not drowning his sorrows with alcohol, nor was he out to get drunk. He just wanted to stay quietly and empty himself like this. He did not want to think about anything else. He had thought about what he should think about and what should happen had happened. At least for now, he could not change anything. Qin Sheng's heart was filled with anger. There was a table of men next to Qin Sheng, who were also eating and drinking alone. It seemed that the clothes they were wearing were not cheap, but they were somewhat dirty and wrinkled. It seemed that they had not bathed for a few days. Their hair was messy and their faces were extremely greasy. Qin Sheng looked at him casually and saw that the man's eyes were slack and his spirit was haggard. He did not know what he had experienced to make him like this. However, who didn't have a story in their life? Who could live a smooth life? Qin Shing did not have so much interest to care about other people's lives. He could not even solve his own difficulties. How could he have the time to care about others? After a few glasses of wine, Qin Shing called Yu Kefi. When the phone was connected, he said embarrassedly, "Lao Si, I may not be able to go to your wedding. Please don't blame me. Yu Kefi was going to get married this weekend." If there was no such thing, Qin Shing had planned to arrive in the morning of the day after tomorrow, and then go back to Beijing on Monday. Now it seemed that he could not go. After all, anything could happen in these days. He had to stay in Beijing. Yu Kefi had already known about the Qin family's affairs. Today's news could be regarded as a shock to the entire capital world. The famous Master Qin of Chang'an Group was arrested. This was not only the collapse of Chang'an Group, but also the end of an era of capital. No one could grow as savagely as before. Everyone could not help guessing who would be the next one. It was impossible for Yu Kefi not to know such a big thing, and he saw the news for the first time. He immediately did not hesitate to call Xia Ding to discuss whether to call Qin Shing to ask about it. But in the end, they gave up and just sent a text message. However, Qin Shing did not have time to see it, because there were many people who sent text messages to Qin Shing. It seemed that everyone had a tacit understanding not to call. "Boss, I know. I won't say anything else. Take care of yourself. If you need help, call me. I will never refuse within my ability." Yu Kefi replied very straightforwardly. The feelings of 4 years in college were there. At this time, there was no need for any polite words. He could imagine what Qin Shing was going through. If such a thing happened to the Yu family, Yu Kefi wondered if he could bear it. Qin Shing did not want to be pretentious and replied, "Well, let's get together again after we are done. I wish you a happy wedding in advance. I will ask Xia Ding to bring you a red envelope." Ha! After that, they hung up the phone. Qin Shing did not know why he did not want to say anything more. He did not want others to guess his emotions. It seemed that talking to anyone at this moment would make him feel that he was perfunctory. So it was better to be alone and quiet. After hanging up the phone, Qin Shing continued to drink and eat meat. His mood did not change much. However, he heard that the man next to him seemed to be sobbing in a low voice. He just buried his head in his arms and did not want others to see him like this. Qin Shing still did not speak. He was still not interested in caring. Some people's difficulties may be natural disasters or man-made disasters. Some people may be self-inflicted. Qin Shing was not sure which one it was, so he did not bother to care. After a while, the weather was not good. It suddenly rained. Although it was still a little light, the open-air food stall was definitely not open. The boss let everyone sit inside. Although everyone liked to sit outside in the summer, there was no other way but to move in. After all, there was air conditioning inside. Naturally, Qin Shing also moved in. Everyone moved in, except for the man next to Qin Shing, who did not move at all. This made everyone somewhat puzzled. However, although everyone was curious, it was none of their business. In order not to get into trouble, no one cared about him. At this time, the rain was getting heavier and heavier. The restaurant owner and the waiter finally couldn't stand it anymore. After all, the man's appearance was too miserable. In such a heavy rain, he drank beer and ate food that was already inedible. This was really a sad sight. Qin Shing was also attracted. It seemed that after the boss and the waiter went over and talked a lot, the man still did not move. He still sat there, but stopped eating and drank wine. Finally, Qin Shing could not stand it anymore. When the boss and the waiter came over, he took the boss' umbrella and said, "I will go and ask." The boss said helplessly, "He is a psycho. Just ignore him." Qin Shing shook his head and smiled bitterly. He also wanted to know what this man had experienced to make him lose his composure. Why did his clothes cost more than 10,000 yuan? There was a Cartier blue balloon watch on his wrist. He should not be an ordinary person. What could make him like this? After Qin Shing walked over, he lowered his head and said to the man, "As long as one is alive, there is no obstacle that cannot be overcome. I am also experiencing setbacks, but everything has to look forward." After hearing Qin Shing's words, the man did not raise his head and said, "Thank you. Do you want to listen to my story?" "Go ahead, I will listen." Qin Shing gave the man enough kindness. The man raised his head and drank a mouthful of wine. "This is the most difficult time for me. My friend betrayed me, my company went bankrupt, my wife ran away with my child, my mother died in a car accident. I have nothing left. What else do you want to persuade me?" The man's words were very calm, without too much nonsense. There was no emotion, as if life had completely defeated him. Or maybe he had completely returned to being ordinary. Qin Shing didn't know what to say at that moment. The man continued, "I'm not a psychopath, and I won't commit suicide. I just want to vent my anger like this. I don't feel ashamed, because our lives will never intersect again." Qin Shing did not expect this man to speak so directly. It seemed that he had seen the world. Otherwise, how could he say such words? "Then what are you going to do in the future?" Qin Shing asked curiously. The man put down the wine bottle and sighed. "What else can I do? I am going back to my hometown and start all over again. One day I will go back to Beijing again. After all, there are still dozens of years left in life. I can't just give up like this. How can I live the rest of my life? I am a man. I will not be defeated. I will only fight bravely." When saying this, Qin Shing felt that the man's eyes were full of murderous intent, which was completely different from the decadence just now. It seemed that this was the feeling of living in the face of death. Somehow, Qin Shing was also affected by the man's words. It seemed that what he was going through now was not a problem at all. It seemed that it was true. Compared with what the man had experienced, he was so much happier. Qin Shing thought about it carefully. If he were the man, would he be in the same state as the man at this moment? "Okay, when you go back to Beijing again, we will definitely meet again. At that time, I will buy you a drink," Qin Shing said firmly. After saying this, Qin Shing did not try to persuade the man anymore. He turned back to the restaurant to pay the bill. He did not say what they had talked about just now. He just left the boss his contact number and asked the boss to give it to the man later. He believed that they would meet again. At this time, Chang Baji came over with an umbrella and escorted Qin Shing to the car. After a while, they drove away. Looking at Qin Shing's disappearing figure, the man could not help thinking. Then he lowered his head and continued to drink. No matter how hard life was, it had to go on. 2 days passed by like this. The Qin family was still asking for information, but there was still no news. The Chang'an group had completely become the sixth uncle's chess pieces. Chang Sini and Hao Mingyi took the initiative to resign and leave the Chang'an group, but everyone knew that it was the sixth uncle who forced them to leave. Otherwise, he could not say that he had fired them, right? 2 days later, the sixth master's villa in Beijing welcomed a distinguished guest, who had contributed a lot to the Qin family's affairs behind the scenes. Of course, he had helped the sixth uncle. Beside the distinguished guest was the middle-aged man who had appeared at the gate of the Yang family's Sihiyuan that night and made Chang Baji feel threatened. Obviously, the big fish behind the scenes had surfaced. At the same time, in Shanghai, after Zhu Qingwen returned to Shanghai, he still could not persuade the old lady. In the end, the old lady quietly left for Beijing today. This was the first time the old lady had returned to Beijing after 8 years. Chapter 902. An explanation. The Beijing-Shanghai high-speed railway was currently the busiest and most profitable high-speed railway in China, with an annual profit of more than 10 billion yuan. Construction began in 2008, opened in June 11, and began to make profits in 2015. It was far ahead of the project's original prediction of 5 years of construction and 5 years of profit. For many passengers, choosing high-speed railway brought more than convenience and comfort. For example, passengers who liked to smoke could get off the train and smoke along the way, which was incomparable to flying. At first, experts predicted that there would be absolutely not so many passengers. However, all the cities along the Beijing-Shanghai Railway were developed cities along the eastern coast. How could there be no passenger flow? It was said that the second line of the Beijing-Shanghai high-speed railway was already planned. Today, a Fuxing train departing from Shanghai Hongqiao welcomed a few distinguished guests. The entire business class cabin had been booked. Sitting in the middle was an old lady who was nearly 100 years old. Although the old lady had silver hair and a face full of wrinkles, she was amiable and looked very approachable. No one could guess the identity of this old lady. However, the flight attendant in the business class cabin had already been notified, and she was even more cautious when serving. Sitting next to the old lady was a woman who looked very graceful and elegant. She took good care of the old lady and asked about the old lady's health every once in a while, for fear that the old lady would make any mistakes. This old lady was none other than her old mother. The old lady was naturally the old lady of the Zhu family, and the noble woman was Zhu Qingwen. Today, the old lady returned to Beijing after 8 years, and Zhu Qingwen naturally had to accompany her in person. In addition, there were 2 nannies and 3 medical staff. Zhu Jiao also accompanied his grandmother back to Beijing today. He wanted to see his cousin, who might be going through the biggest difficulty in his life. Zhu Zhongshan calmed the old lady down. Zhu Qingwen thought that she could persuade the old lady, but she did not expect that the old lady would be so determined this time. This was beyond Zhu Qingwen's expectation. In the end, she could only compromise because even her brother, who was in a high position, had compromised. After all, this was her old mother. "Mom, take a nap first. It will take a while for the train to arrive. I will wake you up when we arrive," Zhu Qingwen said in a low voice, holding the old lady's hand. She was on tenterhooks all the way. The old lady's health was not the same as 8 years ago. Moreover, the old lady had never taken the high-speed railway. Who knew what would happen? The old lady waved her hand and said, "I'm not sleepy yet. I'll sleep after a while. I haven't been out of Shanghai for 8 years. I don't know what's going on outside. I have to see the changes in our country." The old granny was also from a revolutionary background. She had followed the old man around for most of her life. Their fates had accompanied the growth of the People's Republic, and the feelings they had for the country would not diminish with age. That was why the old granny said that. Zhu Qingwen nodded with a smile and said, "Okay, then take a good look. I will let you see as much as you want along the way." The old lady continued to look out of the window, while Zhu Qingwen dealt with things. Everything had been arranged in Beijing. When the time came, the sister-in-law would come to pick them up in person. As for the brother, he was tied up with work and could not leave. The old lady did not like to be too ostentatious. Wasn't it just going back to Beijing? This was the old place. The current arrangement was that after returning to Beijing, the old lady would directly live in a residential area in Xiangshan. The standard of the residential area was naturally very high. Ordinary people could not live in it. There were also many old friends of the old lady there. Usually, there would be people to accompany and chat with the old lady. The old man had moved here a few years after he retired. In the beginning, they lived near Fuyo Street. However, the old man felt that it was not convenient, so he moved away. Zhu Qingwen and the others had not told the Qin siblings that the old lady had returned to Beijing. Even Zhu Jiao had been strictly warned that if he secretly leaked the secret, he would break his legs when he got home. It was rare for Zhu Jiao to see his loving mother so serious and serious. He was instantly frightened. How would he dare to secretly leak the secret, unless he did not want to live anymore? At this time, Zhu Jiao was chatting with a new girlfriend. She was a talented girl from the Shanghai Conservatory of Music. Her family was also a scholar. Zhu Jiao liked her very much. Every day, he would go to the beautiful girl. The beautiful girl always looked neither sad nor happy. She even talked in a soft voice, which made Zhu Jiao enjoy it very much. He did not know whether he would be serious this time or continue to play around. Zhu Qingwen was not very strict with Zhu Jiao. However, she also had a bottom line. After all, Zhu Changshuan's identity was there. Nowadays, there were many sons who deceived their fathers. Therefore, once she found that Zhu Jiao had crossed the line, she would immediately nip it in the bud. In fact, Zhu Jiao's new girlfriend was the girl who had asked him to lend money to her last time. Zhu Jiao was not willing to ask others for this kind of thing. He did not have much pocket money, and he did not dare to ask for it from his family. If it was outside, he was afraid that something would go wrong. In the end, he turned to his rich cousin. Anyway, he did not need to return the money for a while. Naturally, he did not feel pressured. However, this matter was found out by his biological brother later. Compared to the other people in the Zhu family, Zhu Jiao's biological brother was especially strict with him. Fortunately, Zhu Jiao did not come back, and this matter was left unsettled. Zhu Jiao was chatting happily. The corners of his mouth would involuntarily rise. Anyone could see that they were in love. Zhu Qingwen laughed and said, "Jiao, when will you bring the girl home for me to see?" Zhu Jiao replied without turning his head, "Another day." As soon as he finished speaking, he came to himself in an instant and explained in a hurry, "Mom, what are you talking about?" "I'm talking about something. What do you mean by bringing the girl home?" Zhu Qingwen stared at her son and said, "You think I don't know you? I'm warning you. If you want to have a good relationship, you have to be responsible for the girl. Don't harm her. Don't think that I don't know about your bad things." Zhu Jiao panicked in an instant. However, he did not do anything outrageous. He had been in love a few times and treated them sincerely every time. It was only later that he found out that the girl had ulterior motives or took the initiative to leave after knowing his family background. He could not do anything about it. At this time, the old lady said on behalf of her grandson, "Why do you care so much? Our Jiao is not a bad boy." Zhu Jiao immediately said, "Grandma knows me well. Grandma, you are so nice." The old lady snorted and said, "Don't talk nonsense." Zhu Jiao immediately shut up obediently and continued to chat with the talented woman. Thinking of her walking towards him in a white dress on a summer evening with her little aunt, the breeze blowing her hair and the passers-by whispering to each other, he felt that he was the happiest person in the world at that time. In the evening, the Zhus finally arrived at the Beijing South Railway Station. The car was parked in a special place. It was not known whether it was a coincidence or intentional, but it stopped at the number 1 platform on the far side. Before Zhu Jiao got off the car, he saw several military cars parked outside the window. Obviously, his uncle had arranged to pick them up. Sometimes Zhu Jiao felt that he had been born into such a family, which seemed to have a lot of privileges that ordinary people could not imagine. However, Zhu Jiao sometimes felt very stressed. So far, he had not found his own direction in life. Having no time to think about it, Zhu Jiao quickly got off the car and immediately pushed his grandmother's wheelchair. He was clever enough, or else the whole Zhu family would not like him so much. Wu Yajun had been waiting for a long time. Seeing the old lady get off the car, she quickly walked over and said hello to the old lady and others with a smile. They did not talk too much and immediately got on the car and left the Beijing South Railway Station. After all, it would take a lot of time on the road. For some reason, Zhu Jiao did not take the same car with his grandmother and aunt. Instead, he sat in the car behind. After getting on the car, Zhu Jiao breathed a sigh of relief. Finally, he could get rid of his mother's sight. At this time, Zhu Jiao quietly sent a text message on his mobile phone. The text message said, "Cousin, I am risking my life to tell you a message. If you want to know, reply quickly." After sending the text message, Zhu Jiao waited anxiously. This time he was really risking his life. If his mother knew about it, who knew what kind of inhumane torture he would suffer when he went back home? A few minutes later, the text message came back. The content said, "Say it quickly." Zhu Jiao raised his head and looked at the driver and other people in front of him. He immediately lowered his head and replied, "I can tell you, it's that." This time, Zhu Jiao did not wait. The text message came back. The content said, "You don't have to return the money." The corner of Zhu Jiao's mouth rose. He immediately replied, "Good." The next second, the text message came back. The content said, "News." Zhu Jiao took a deep breath and slowly typed, "Grandma has arrived in Beijing." This time, Zhu Jiao didn't receive any more news, because Qin Sheng was so shocked that he didn't know what to do. Grandma went back to Beijing? In the courtyard of the sixth uncle in Suzhou City, the distinguished guest arrived quietly. He looked quite old, probably in his 70s or 80s. For him to come out at this age, it was obvious that he was not a good person. Moreover, he was accompanied by that extremely dangerous man. Sixth uncle had been waiting for a long time. This place definitely did not allow outsiders to enter. All the people here were his trusted subordinates. The security level was very high. No one was allowed to get close to this place. That was because the distinguished guest he was meeting today was the Qin family's old enemy. Back then, Qin Sheng's mother had died unexpectedly because of this distinguished guest. Therefore, if the Zhu family knew about this, sixth uncle could be sure that even if the Qin family could not do anything to him, the Zhu family would go all out to deal with him. With the Zhu family's current influence, he would really get into big trouble. Sixth uncle sat on the purple sandalwood chair. When he saw the old man coming in, he immediately stood up and greeted him with a smile. "Brother, I have been waiting for you for a long time. We meet again." The old man, who was staggering with his back bent over medicine, slightly raised his eyes, glanced at sixth uncle, and said, "Lao Lu, you should give me an explanation. This is not what I want. Is this what you are capable of?" Sixth uncle instantly felt a little nervous. Until now, he still did not know how powerful this old man was. However, he was sure that if the old man wanted to kill him, he could absolutely do it without anyone knowing. That was because the several assassinations against the Qin family were all sent by the old man. Chapter 903. I forgot to mention that a few days ago, Lao Guan's novel, The Inheritance of Toon, won the award of the National Press and Publication Administration and the China Writers Association as the Outstanding Online Literature Works of 2019, with the theme of celebrating the 70th anniversary of the founding of China. Thank you for your support. This slightly chubby, silver-haired old man was now 80 years old. His face was full of wrinkles and age spots. He was short and stooped, but his imposing manner was unstoppable. In particular, his hawk-like eyes and hooked nose made him look like he was born to be a bad guy. He would definitely be a villain in a TV series. Even in real life, most ordinary people probably did not dare to provoke such a character. Most importantly, there were not many people who could make sixth uncle nervous. Therefore, the identity of this old man was even more mysterious. Sixth uncle did not say anything. The old man had already walked slowly to the tea table. The dangerous man behind him moved a rosewood chair for the old man unhurriedly. After the old man sat down, he took 2 steps back and stood there quietly. Sixth uncle was not an ordinary person. After adjusting his emotions quickly, he smiled and poured tea for the old man. He politely invited the old man to drink tea. The old man did not refuse. He had been a distinguished guest of many big shots. Otherwise, how could he have entangled with the Qin family and old Master Qin for so long? Old brother, things are different now. Some things can't be rushed. When I finish what I should do, it will be much more convenient for you to do things. Sixth uncle said with a smile. If it were not for the help of this old man, how could he have brought down the Qin family so quickly? The old man's contributions could not go unnoticed. The two families that had supported Qin Chang'an in the past and supported him in the end were both persuaded by this old man. The old man replied disapprovingly, "When you finish what you should do? I'm afraid it will be too late by then. I have given you so many resources, and you have only reached this step. Everyone in Siju City says that you, Lord Lu, are powerful. I think you are just SOSO. The old man's attitude was very tough. He hadn't been back to Beijing for some time. Now that he suddenly came back and found Sixth Uncle, it showed that he was somewhat dissatisfied with what Sixth Uncle was doing. The Sixth Uncle was not a man to be trifled with. No matter how powerful the old man was, he would not be afraid of him. He just did not want their relationship to deteriorate. After all, both of them were still useful to each other. He replied in a low voice, "Brother, Qin Chang'an has been arrested. He will probably be sentenced to life imprisonment. Without Qin Chang'an, the Chang'an department will be gone, and the Qin family will be gone. At that time, the orphans and widows of the Qin family will be at your mercy. Why are you so anxious? Things are different now. If I were to be so direct, you would have to pay a heavy price." The old man sneered. "This is all your excuse, isn't it? Elder brother, what do you think we should do?" Sixth uncle said unhappily. The old man was silent for a moment before he said, "I'll trust you one more time. Give me a specific time." "It won't take long. At present, the investigation team will be stationed in the Chang'an department. At that time, I will provide evidence that will make Qin Chang'an have no chance to make a comeback. Everything will be settled naturally," Sixth uncle said proudly. The old man chuckled and said, "Then I'll wait for you." Sixth uncle was finally relieved. However, his purpose had been achieved. The rest would be left to the old man. No matter how the old man wanted to deal with the Qin family, it had nothing to do with him. In the West Mountain villa of the Qin family, Qin Xing could not calm down for a long time after he received Zhu Jiao's text message. He stood on the balcony and smoked 3 cigarettes in a row. He did not doubt the authenticity of the news. Zhu Jiao would not lie to him for no reason. After all, the money that Zhu Jiao owed him was really nothing to him. However, until now, whether it was his grandmother or anyone else, they had not been informed about this matter. Why did his grandmother suddenly return to Beijing? Was it because of the Qin family? Didn't the Zhu family say that they would not help? Did other people know about this matter? Should he tell his sister about it? Qin Xing had too many questions to ask. However, there was really no way for him to know now. In the end, he chose to keep silent and pretend that nothing had happened. No matter why his grandmother suddenly returned to Beijing, he believed that he would find out soon. At this time, several people were sitting in the living room of the Qin family. They were discussing several important matters. Qin Xing did not waste too much time and came out. She asked casually, "What's wrong?" Qin Xing smiled and explained, "Nothing. I called Lin Su." "Okay, then let's continue," Zhao Anji said lightly. Although Hao Mingyi and Chang Sini had left the management of the Chang'an school, they were still the directors. They were somewhat worried and said, "I heard that the investigation team is about to enter the Chang'an school. The scope of the investigation will expand. If we still can't control the Chang'an school, I am afraid that a lot of evidence will be against Master Qin. At that time, the result will be even more obvious." Zhao Anji replied, "We don't need to discuss this matter anymore. The Chang'an school has nothing to do with us. We all know what you said, but we can do nothing about it. Now we need to prepare a team of lawyers. Currently, I am contacting the top lawyers in the country. No matter how much money we spend, we will try to reduce the sentence as much as possible." Zhao Anji had no other choice. Now the Qin family could only prepare in this way. After all, this was a step that they had to take. Since they could not change the direction, they could only try to reduce Qin Chang'an's crime as much as possible. Chang Sini let out a long sigh and said, "This is the only way." Maybe the Qin family had been too smooth these years. Finally, they had experienced the most difficult setback, and no one knew if they could get through it. Gongsun, who had rushed back from Shenzhen, said at this time, "What about the two in Shenzhen and the northeast? If they can't handle it well, the others will be ready to make trouble." Gongsun was definitely on the Qin family's side. It was okay if the Chang'an school was gone, the Qin family still had these industries. But if these people were also in trouble, the Qin family would have no way out. Therefore, Gongsun hoped that these problems could be solved quickly. It was indeed not a small matter, but the Qin family could not be distracted at this time. If they could not handle the things in Beijing, they would have no energy to care about other things. Qin Xing said helplessly, "Uncle Gongsun, let them go first. When the things here are over, we will go back and deal with them. Let's see what they can do." Qin Xing, this is the Qin family's last way out. You have to think about it carefully. If there is no way out, the Qin family will lose everything. Gongsun was somewhat worried. Now that the Chang'an school was gone, the Qin family's last property was also gone, and the Qin family's situation was really too difficult. After that night, Qin Xing had been relieved a lot. He was not as nervous as before. He replied calmly, "Uncle Gongsun, as long as all the people in the Qin family are still alive, even if there is nothing left, so what? Back then, my father was able to build up the family from scratch. I, Qin Xing, will not let you down." Hearing Qin Xing's heroic words, Gongsun was very pleased and nodded. He was afraid that these setbacks that Qin Xing had never experienced before would completely defeat him. After all, when Qin Xing returned to the Qin family, the Qin family was in the peak state. Suddenly bearing these pressures, he was afraid that they would not be able to stand up again. Gongsun said in a low voice, "Okay, since you said so, I will listen to you." After the family meeting, Qin Xing saw the others off in person. When he came back, his sister was still chatting with the aunt. Qin Xing hesitated whether to tell his sister the news or whether she already knew it but did not tell him. In the end, Qin Xing gave up. Tomorrow was Yu Kefi's wedding. The other two in the dormitory had already arrived. Chow Yufeng might have heard from Yu Kefi that Qin Xing could not go, but he did not take the initiative to call Qin Xing. Otherwise, they would have agreed to set off from Beijing together. It was said that many college classmates were going to attend the wedding. Yu Kefi later became quite popular. Perhaps because of his family background, he would take the initiative to get close to Qin Xing even without making friends. Qin Xing felt somewhat regretful that he could not attend Yu Kefi's wedding. After all, when he was in Fudan University, Yu Kefi was his little follower. He also treated Yu Kefi as his younger brother. The two of them were quite close. Now that the little guy was going to get married, time passed so quickly. Next were Xia Ding and Chow Yufeng. Both of them had set the time to get married in the second half of the year. Qin Xing hoped that he could attend the wedding at that time. In the end, he was the only one left. Qin Xing sighed with emotion, not knowing when he could get married. The next day, Xia Ding sent Qin Xing a lot of videos of the wedding scene. They all had a good time. Qin Xing could only wish them well in silence. The weekend passed like this. During the 2 days, his grandmother did not contact him. Qin Xing secretly called Zhu Jiao and learned that his small aunt had also accompanied his grandmother to Beijing. It seemed that his grandmother did not intend to go back to Shanghai in a hurry. She had already lived in her home in Xiangshan. This was more intriguing. But why hadn't she told them? Qin Xing did not take the initiative to call his grandmother and small aunt. Otherwise, people would feel that he was too deliberate. After all, his grandmother was in Beijing now. This phone call would have a different meaning. In a high-standard residential area in Xiangshan, there were armed police on duty at the gate of the residential area. Even inside the residential area, there were armed police patrolling 24 hours a day. Any stranger entering or leaving the residential area would be strictly examined. They would not let him go until their identities were confirmed. Not to mention the cars going in and out of the residential area, almost all of them had special license plates. It could be seen that those who could live in this residential area were not ordinary people. Many of them were big shots who could only be seen on TV. It had been 2 days since the old lady came back. She did not tell anyone that she was coming back. However, she still met her old acquaintances in the residential area. Everyone was very surprised that the old lady suddenly came back. After all, they all knew that the old lady had been living in Shanghai these years. Therefore, several old acquaintances took the initiative to visit the old lady. They talked about family trifles and past events. However, they did not stay long and left. Today, the old lady was going to the hospital for a routine physical examination. Zhu Qingwen and Wu Yajun accompanied her in person. No one knew that the old lady had another plan. That was, she could go to see the old man of the Song family and talk about that thing. Battlefield literature. Chapter 904. Not many people knew about the old lady's return to Beijing. Even the old lady's old friends who visited the old lady were told not to spread the news. She was old and didn't want others to disturb her life. Besides, there was no need to trouble others. Moreover, she had just arrived in Beijing and hadn't adapted to the environment yet. Everyone knew that and didn't say anything. What surprised the Zhu brothers and sisters was that the old lady had been back in Beijing for several days. It seemed that she didn't want to contact her precious grandson and granddaughter, which was different from what the old lady said before she came back. At that time, the old lady said that she was worried that her precious grandson and granddaughter were bullied, so she wanted to come back. Now there was no news from her after she came back. The Zhu brothers and sisters couldn't figure it out, but they thought that they would see the old lady sooner or later. It was only a matter of time. The reason why the old lady didn't see Qin Ran and Qin Xing as soon as she came back was that the old lady had her own considerations. It was not a simple thing to come back to Beijing this time. If she just came back to see Qin Ran and Qin Xing, it would be meaningless. If she directly intervened in the Qin family's affairs, she would be irresponsible to the Zhu family. After all, her son and son-in-law were both in positions and had great influence. But she would definitely help the Qin family handle this matter well. It depended on how she would play her cards. The old lady was going to go to the hospital for a checkup. Based on her current status, she naturally had to go to the general hospital with the highest standards. In fact, there were also hospitals with high standards in Xiangshan. However, when they were in Shanghai, the doctors wanted the old lady to be hospitalized, but the old lady refused. Today, they would go to the general hospital for a checkup. If the old lady's physical condition continued to deteriorate, the Zhu brothers and sisters would have to let the old lady stay in the hospital no matter what. Moreover, the experts and doctors in the general hospital were not low-level, so their words would be more powerful. It depended on whether the old lady would agree or not. Beijing's medical conditions were generally better than Shanghai's, especially in terms of top-notch medical treatment. The general hospital was definitely one of the best hospitals. Most importantly, the general hospital was also responsible for the medical care of high-level leaders. Those who could stay in the general hospital's VIP building were not of low status. They were either heroes who had contributed to the country. The old lady used to come here often when she was in Beijing, especially when her husband was critically ill. She almost never left the general hospital, so she was familiar with this place. She was familiar with many experts and directors, not to mention the leaders here. Today, the old lady was still low-key. she did not disturb the leaders of the hospital. Zhu Qingwen and Wu Yajun also deliberately informed them. After all, they had to inform the hospital in advance if they wanted to see a doctor in the general hospital, so that the hospital could arrange the rest of the things. Under the guidance of the medical staff, the examination of the old lady was very smooth, and it didn't take long. After all, unlike ordinary outpatient clinics, there was no need to make an appointment. Although some results could be seen on the same day or on the same day, other laboratory results could only be obtained the next day. After all, the work in the general hospital was relatively busy, and there were many high-level leaders who were also hospitalized here. After some results that could be seen on the same day came out, the experts in the general hospital also suggested that the old lady should be hospitalized immediately for observation. However, the old lady was still reluctant. Zhu Qingwen said somewhat anxiously, "Mom, I can let you do other things, but can you listen to us on this? The doctors in Ruijin Hospital and the General Hospital have said so. We are doing this for your own good. Even if you don't listen to us, you should listen to the doctors." Wu Yajun also echoed, "Mom, you are already in such a bad condition. If you don't be hospitalized to control it, it will be you who will suffer when it gets serious." Zhu Jiao had been accompanying his cousin in Beijing these days, and he was not in a hurry to go back to Shanghai. He wanted to find his cousin for a drink, but now that he knew everything, he dared not take the initiative to look for him, for fear of causing other troubles. However, when it came to the issue of his grandmother's health, Zhu Jiao naturally stood on everyone's side. He also said, "Grandma, you should listen to my mom and aunt. Let's see the doctor first." The old lady said with a smile, don't worry. I know my body well. Wait for a while, and I will definitely listen to you." "Mom, no, give me a time. How long can I wait? I can wait for 10 days to half a month, half a year, or half a year. If you want to wait for a year, we will definitely not agree." Zhu Qingwen took a tough attitude. The hospital had no choice but to persuade her from a professional point of view. The old lady could also understand the children's feelings, but she really had something to do. After hesitating for a while, she said, "Wait for another week. After a week, I will be hospitalized. What do you think?" After the old lady finished speaking, the others were somewhat surprised. They did not expect that the old lady only said to wait for a week. Wu Yajun did not think much about it. Zhu Qingwen could not help but feel a little nervous. She subconsciously thought of other things. It seemed that within this week, the old lady would definitely have something to do. However, at this time, Zhu Qingwen still put the old lady's health as the top priority. She asked, "Mom, are you sure about 1 week? Don't refuse at that time." The old lady smiled happily and said, "I am already so old, why would I lie to you? You can rest assured. 1 week is 1 week." "That's good." Everyone was satisfied and let out a long sigh of relief. Finally, the old lady agreed. Everything that needed to be done had been done. At this time, Zhu Qingwen said, "Mom, then let's go back. Brother will come over in the afternoon." The old lady had been back in the capital city for several days, but she had not seen her eldest son yet. After all, her eldest son was in a high position and was always busy with work. Today, he finally returned to the capital city. As soon as he came back, he hurried to see his mother, in case she would be angry. Anyway, in front of his mother, he was just a son. However, the old lady said, "Don't worry, I am here today. I am going to visit an old friend. After visiting him, we will go back." "Old friend? Who?" Zhu Qingwen and Wu Yajun were somewhat curious. The old lady did not hide and said truthfully, "Old Master Song is hospitalized. Didn't you hear? Now that I am back, of course, I have to visit my brother." Zhu Qingwen and Wu Yajun looked at each other. It seemed that they really did not know this news. They did not know how the old lady knew. However, if old Master Song was really hospitalized, it was reasonable for the old lady to visit him. At this time, the old lady looked at the chief doctor and said, "Which ward is old Master Song in? Please take us there." Of course, the chief doctor knew who old Master Song was. After all, he was an important patient in the hospital. Many leaders of the hospital had informed the leaders of the hospital and cared about him many times. In the past few days, several leaders had come to visit old Master Song. After all, old Master Song was a very important person. Without hesitation, the chief doctor directly led the Zhu family to old Master Song's intensive care ward. At the same time, he sent someone to inform them to see if it was appropriate to go to old Master Song at this time. If it was inconvenient for old Master Song to rest, there was nothing he could do. In old Master Song's intensive care ward, he was sitting in a wheelchair and reading the newspaper. At this time, the head nurse came to inform him that the old lady of the Zhu family would visit him. Old Master Song was a little curious about which old lady of the Zhu family would visit him. He certainly did not expect that it would be this old lady of the Zhu family. After all, the old lady had not been back to Beijing for many years. Today, Song Husheng came over to accompany his grandfather. When he heard what the head nurse said, he asked, "Which old lady from the Zhu family?" The head nurse had already received the news that not everyone could visit old Master Song. Old Master Song and the Song family didn't want too many people to disturb him, so they would inform him in advance every time someone came to visit. If old Master Song agreed, they would let them in. If old Master Song didn't agree, they could only politely decline. If the visitor was of a high rank, the Song family would personally come to visit. At this time, the head nurse slowly explained which old lady from the Zhu family she was. Being able to become the head nurse here meant that she wasn't an ordinary person. With just a few words, she made her identity clear. Whether it's Song. Both the old master and Song Husheng were shocked when they heard that it was the old lady of the Zhu family. When did the old lady return to Beijing? Why didn't they hear anything about her? Old Master Song did not think much about it. After he came to his senses, he quickly said, "Please, please." Song Husheng also stood up in a hurry. He didn't like the Qin family, but he respected the Zhu family very much. Moreover, the Zhu family's status was like the sun at noon now. No one dared to disrespect the Zhu family. After a while, the old lady walked into old Master Song's ward with the help of Zhu Qingwen and Wu Yajun. Zhu Jiao and the others didn't come in. After all, they didn't want too many people to disturb old Master Song. When old friends saw each other, tears ran down their faces. After the old lady walked into the ward, she saw old Master Song sitting in a wheelchair. She quickly walked to him and said, "Hi, old brother." Old Master Song and old Lady Zhu had known each other for most of their lives. Now they were very old. Moreover, they hadn't seen each other for so many years. How could they not be excited? Old Master Song also stood up excitedly when he saw old Lady Zhu. Song Husheng hurried to support his grandfather. When the two old men shook hands, their eyes were already red. They were really excited. Old Master Song said incoherently, "When did you come back? Why didn't you tell me?" The two old men chatted politely in this way. The others hurried to persuade them not to be too excited. After all, they were both too old and in poor health. If they were too excited, it would be easy for them to get into trouble. After a long time, the crowd finally calmed the two old men down. Old Lady Zhu sat next to old Master Song and chatted with him. They held hands tightly and didn't let go. As people got older, they had fewer and fewer friends. It was such a happy thing for them to see their old friends again after so many years. Zhu Qingwen and Wu Yajun had also greeted old Master Song. They had seen old Master Song on various occasions before. Song Husheng naturally obediently called old Madam Song Grandma. Old Madam Song also praised Song Husheng. "How long will you stay this time?" Old Master Song asked with concern. Old Lady Zhu said with a smile, "I won't leave again. I won't leave again this time. I can't afford any more trouble. You won't leave again? Old Master Song was a little surprised. Old Lady Zhu replied, I was too lonely in Shanghai. I came back to see my old friends. I don't know if it's because I'm old and nostalgic or because I've stayed in Shanghai for too long. I want to go back to Beijing. Old Master Song said casually, That's good. I won't leave again. We can see each other often in the future. We will definitely see each other often in the future. I'll have to come here to accompany you in a few days. Old Lady Zhu laughed at herself. Old Master Song asked worriedly, What's wrong? When people get old, they are always sick. It's not a big problem. The children are worried about them and let them stay in the hospital for a while. We can't persuade them. Old Lady Zhu chuckled. Old Master Song laughed and said, That's true. But the children are also doing this for our own good. Old Lady Zhu didn't say anything this time. She had been out for a long time and her body was a little tired. Moreover, she didn't want to disturb Old Master Song for too long. However, she couldn't say something directly at this time. Otherwise, her daughter, Zhu Qingwen, and daughter-in-law, Wu Yajun, would definitely think too much. Therefore, the smart old lady used her eyes to convey the meaning to Old Master Song. Old Master Song had been in a high position for a long time. How could he not understand Old Master Zhu's meaning? Moreover, when he calmed down just now, he wondered why Old Lady Zhu suddenly came back to Beijing. It was very likely that it had something to do with the matter of the Qin family. This was the only possibility he could think of. Therefore, Old Master Song took the initiative to say to the others, Children, you can all leave for a while. Let us two old guys talk about something. After Old Master Song finished his words, the expressions on the others' faces changed. They couldn't help but guess something. Chapter 905. Since Old Master Song had already said so, Zhu Qingwen, Wu Yajun, and Song Husheng were all juniors, so they naturally had no reason to refuse. They smiled at the two elders and left the intensive care unit. When Zhu Qingwen left, she subconsciously looked back at the two old people. Old Master Song's power was there. Although he had retired for many years, no one dared to underestimate Old Master Song's power. Could it be that the old lady returned to Beijing this time to see Old Master Song? Or persuade him to help the Qin family? Or the Zhu and Song families together? If she could persuade Old Master Song, it might be possible to change the situation. But why would the Song family help the Qin family? Although the two families were old friends, it was impossible for Old Master Song to speak for the Qin family. Besides, the Zhu family hadn't done anything yet. Why would the Song family help? Zhu Qingwen thought about it and couldn't figure it out. But he was sure that the two old men must be talking about the Qin family. Song Husheng thought the same. The old lady of the Zhu family suddenly came back to Beijing, which was very sensitive. The old lady of the Zhu family hadn't come back for so many years in Shanghai. Now she came back at this time. What else could it be except for the Qin family? But Song Husheng was also curious. The Zhu family had never liked the Qin family. It was Qin Ran who had maintained the relationship. It was impossible for them to help at this time. If they wanted to help, they would have done it long ago. They didn't have to drag the Song family into this. Besides, Grandpa had made it clear that he would not help the Qin family through the crisis. This was his principle. What could the two old men talk about? Song Husheng couldn't help thinking about that, but then he shook his head hard. It was a matter between the Song and the Qin family. The Zhu family couldn't interfere. Besides, the Zhu family might not know about it. It seemed that he was thinking too much. After everyone left the ward, the atmosphere was more natural. Old Master Song asked casually, "Did you come back for the Qin family this time?" The old lady answered honestly, "Yes and no. I don't understand. But the Zhu family hasn't had much contact with Chang'an these years. I don't think you came back for Chang'an." Old Master Song saw it clearly. The old lady said disdainfully, "Of course not. I haven't forgiven him until now. How could it be for him? For him to end up like this today, it was the price he had to pay. He couldn't blame anyone else. Moreover, he was your favorite student back then. Even you didn't speak up for him, so what reason do I have to speak up for him?" Old Master Song frowned and said, "Then why did you come back?" The old lady let out a long sigh and said, "Alas, it's all because of my beloved grandson and granddaughter. My poor daughter died early and left the poor children behind. Ran has been taken care of by us all these years, but my grandson has been wandering outside for so many years. Now, he has just come back to live a comfortable life for 2 days, and then he encountered such a thing. I really don't know what I owe the Qin family in my previous life." Old Master Song roughly understood what Old Lady Zhu meant. He said casually, "Qin Chang'an is Qin Chang'an. Qin Ran and Qin Sheng are Qin Ran and Qin Sheng. These two things are not related. Even if something happens to Qin Chang'an, it has nothing to do with Qin Ran and Qin Sheng. You can ask them to stay out of this." Old Lady Zhu said helplessly, "If that's the case, I don't have to go back to Beijing. I know my 2 grandsons and granddaughters' temper. Anyway, Qin Chang'an is their father. Of course, they won't stay out of it. That's why I came back to Beijing." Old Master Song squinted and asked, "What do you want to do?" "I want Qin Sheng and Qin Ran to break up with the current Qin family and Qin Chang'an," Old Lady Zhu said firmly. She seemed to be very determined. Old Master Song was lost in thought. It seemed that Old Lady Zhu came back for the Qin family, but he still didn't know what she wanted to do. Seeing that Old Master Song didn't say anything, Old Lady Zhu smiled and said, "Don't you want to know what I will do? Since you can come back to Beijing, it seems that you have thought about what to do. I just hope that it won't involve too many people." Old Master Song felt a headache and shook his head helplessly. Old Lady Zhu laughed and said, "Brother, you think too much. I don't have so many ideas. It's enough to do 3 things. As for the result, it's not up to me. I just don't want to see others bully my 2 grandsons and granddaughters. I just hope they can live a better life in the future." "I hope everything goes well for you," Old Master Song said lightly. At this time, Old Lady Zhu said, "But one of them needs the help of the Song family. This is also the reason why I came here today. I didn't want to do this, but without the Song family, I'm afraid that the Zhu family won't agree." Old Lady Zhu's words made Old Master Song even more confused. What on earth did this old lady want to do today? Even he couldn't figure it out. He asked curiously, "What is it? I want to know." Old Lady Zhu slowly said the purpose of this trip. She said, "Qin Sheng and Ryu's marriage." After Old Lady Zhu threw out the answer, Old Master Song instantly understood what was going on. It turned out that Old Lady Zhu wanted to tie the Song family to the Zhu family by force. Old Master Song felt like he had been fooled. Seeing that Old Master Song didn't say anything, Old Lady Zhu continued, "I know that you and the old guy from the Qin family were engaged." "What? Now you don't want to admit it, or do you think that the Qin family is in trouble now and doesn't deserve the Song family? Or do you want to go back on your word? Let's take a step back. You agreed to the marriage because you owed the old guy. You can't deny it when the old guy is gone." Old Master Song was not angry at all. He just smiled helplessly and said, "I finally understand. You're forcing me to stand on your side, right?" "You can't say that. I didn't force you to make a choice. This is what you should do. Even if it's not now, it will be in the future. It's okay if you don't do it. Just pretend that I didn't say anything or come here. Besides, even if you did it, you actually didn't do anything. I didn't ask you to plead for leniency or help, nor did I break your principles." Old Lady Zhu said with a smile. It seemed that Old Master Song was completely controlled by her. It seemed that it was true. Today, Old Lady Zhu was completely different from the amiable old lady of the past. The old lady was even more imposing than Old Man's song. The two old people, who were nearly 100 years old, were having an interesting confrontation. No one knew who would win in the end. Old Master Song let out a long sigh and said helplessly, "I won't talk about the marriage. As long as the two kids don't have any objections, I won't. Anyway, this is what I promised the Chin family. Of course, I can't go back on my word. However, apart from this, I won't talk about anything related to the Chin family. Once I open my mouth, it won't be easy. In front of the country, an old man like me is nothing, not to mention the Chin family." Old Lady Zhu sighed and said helplessly, "Brother, don't worry. Brother, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. I have principles. Otherwise, I won't be able to face the old man after I die. I'm just doing something for the two kids. I'll let them make a choice. If they don't listen to me, there's nothing I can do. That's the path they've chosen, and they'll walk it," the old lady said seriously. Today, she had come to Old Master Song with a thick face. Old Master Song agreed, not only because he owed the Chin family, but also because he trusted her. Old Master Song felt a headache and said, "Children have their own happiness. I won't care about anything in the future." Old Lady Zhu said shyly, "Brother, I'm really bothering you today. I'm a little tired. Let's not talk anymore. You should go to bed early. When I come over another day, we'll have plenty of time to chat." Old Master Song waved his hand and said, "Then I won't see you off. Don't get too tired because of this. Your health is more important." "Got it, brother. I'm leaving." Old Lady Zhu was a little tired and was about to leave. At this time, she did not forget to remind him, "Brother, remember what you said? As long as the two kids don't have any objections, I hope the Song family won't put pressure on Ryu. Otherwise, it will be considered as breaking the contract." "Don't worry, I won't," Old Master Song said directly with his eyes closed. After chatting for so long, he was really a little tired. He had talked enough today and was really sleepy now. He really did not expect that Old Lady Zhu would make such a move. The Song family had no choice but to choose. If the two kids really agreed to this, the Song family would be on the Chin family's side even if they did not take the initiative to help. This might be the last thing the Song family could do for the Chin family without challenging his principles and bottom line. It could also be considered as returning all the favors to the Chin family. However, everything was just like what Old Lady Zhu said. She was just doing something for the two kids. As for the rest of the things, they, the old guys, could not make the decision. When Old Lady Zhu pushed the door open and came out, Zhu Qingwen and Wu Yajun quickly stood up and held the old lady. They said, "Mom, why didn't you call us?" Zhu Qingwen, Wu Yajun, and Song Husheng were all a little anxious. They had been chatting for so long in the ICU, but they did not know what they were talking about. They sat outside and could not hear them at all. They could only say that the ICU's security was really high. "I'm not so old that I can't walk anymore. Let's go home," Old Lady Zhu said with a smile. Zhu Qingwen and Wu Yajun quickly held the old lady and walked out. When they passed by Song Husheng hurriedly said, "Grandma, take care." There was no one else here today, so Song Husheng naturally could not see Old Lady Zhu and the others off in person. Old Lady Zhu smiled and nodded to Song Husheng. Song Husheng hurriedly walked into the ward. Seeing that Grandpa was sitting there tiredly, Song Husheng called the doctors and nurses to put Grandpa in bed to rest. But she was more curious about what on earth the two elders were talking about. On the way back to the Zhu family, before Zhu Qingwen and Wu Yajun asked anything, Old Lady Zhu had already fallen asleep in exhaustion. She was old and did not have the time and energy to care about other things. But for the sake of her two grandchildren, she had no choice this time. Fortunately, everything went well today. Tomorrow was the next thing. Chapter 906. Because of the old lady's sudden return to the capital, the ending became complicated again. The Zhu family and the Song family were involved inexplicably. When the Zhu family returned to the residential area of Xiangshan, the kitchen began to prepare a sumptuous dinner. After all, the man who held a high position in the Zhu family would be back soon. It was not easy for Zhu Weiguo to reach such a prominent position today. Everyone in the Zhu family benefited from it. The Zhu family could still stand in Siju City after the death of the old master, and now there was hope for the Zhu family to rise to the next level, all thanks to Zhu Weiguo's unremitting efforts. After the old lady came back, she went to bed and didn't wake up until 6 o'clock. Today, all the direct descendants of the Zhu family in Jing City were here, except for Qin Ran and Qin Xing. It seemed that the 4 generations of the Zhu family were happy and harmonious, but no one dared to mention Qin Ran and Qin Xing in front of the old lady, for fear of making the old lady unhappy. Moreover, this was the first family gathering of the Zhu family after the old lady returned to Jing City. At 6:30, Zhu Weiguo came back on time. Hearing the noise at the door, everyone hurried to stand up. Zhu Weiguo walked in alone, and the others were waiting outside. After greeting everyone, he went to greet his mother. In the past, he always hoped that the old lady would come back to the capital, so that he could see her more often. Otherwise, if the old lady stayed in Shanghai all the time, it would be difficult for him to see her more than a few times a year. After all, he was too busy with work nowadays. Zhu Weiguo felt a little uneasy when the old lady suddenly came back. It was not only because of the Qin family, but also because of other inexplicable feelings. In short, Zhu Weiguo was very uneasy, especially worried about the old lady's health, so he had been urging Zhu Qingwen these days. "Mom!" Zhu Weiguo half squatted in front of the old lady, without any imposing manner. At this moment, he was just an ordinary son, like most ordinary men. When Zhu Weiguo wanted to ask more questions, the old lady said casually, "Let's eat." In the past, when the old lady saw her filial son, she would be very happy. She would always talk to her son, but this time, she did not seem to be in a good mood. Everyone could tell what was going on with her attitude. Originally, everyone was very happy. They were still talking and laughing in the living room, but now they didn't dare to say anything. Only a few children were left playing around. The old lady quite liked these little guys. In order to ease the awkward atmosphere, Zhu Qingwen, Wu Yajun, and the others took the initiative to chat. Zhu Weiguo also talked about what was going on outside, intentionally or unintentionally. When he took the initiative to talk to the old lady also responded intermittently. Everyone could feel that the old lady was not in a good mood. The old lady did not eat much. She was full after eating a few mouthfuls. She put down her chopsticks and looked at everyone in the room casually. Then she sighed and said, "Hey, you guys eat. I'm a little tired." The nanny and servants hurriedly helped the old lady to leave. Zhu Qingwen and Wu Yajun wanted to help, but they were all rejected by the old lady. They were also somewhat helpless. Zhu Weiguo frowned and said, "What's wrong?" Zhu Qingwen said honestly, "She's been like this since she came back from the hospital. I don't know what she talked about with old Master Song. We can't let her continue like this. Sooner or later, something bad will happen." Zhu Jiao interrupted and said, "Grandma must miss my cousin and my cousin." Zhu Qingwen stared at her son, Zhu Jiao, but did not deny anything. Zhu Weiguo, of course, knew what was going on. He also let out a long sigh and said, "This thing has to be solved sooner or later. Otherwise, it will definitely be a problem for the old lady." Everyone knew what was going on, but no one knew what to do. Zhu Qingwen could only feel relieved and said, "How to solve it?" Zhu Weiguo did not want to be entangled in this matter for too long. He said helplessly, "Let's eat. I'll think about it later." For the Zhu family, this was something they had to face even if they did not want to. If they did not solve this problem, the old lady would always be worried about it. For the old lady, who was not in good health, it would be a problem sooner or later. So far, in the Qin family, only Qin Shing knew that the old lady had returned to Beijing. The others did not know it yet. As for the outside world, few people, including the sixth uncle, knew it. They did not expect that the old lady of the Zhu family would come back when the dust had settled. Naturally, they did not dare to secretly monitor the Zhu family. Once they were found out, the problem would be serious. Not only would the Zhu family fight back fiercely, but also it was possible to offend more people. Everyone knew that as long as Zhu Weigua held this position for a long time, the Zhu family would have more and more students in the military in the future, which played a crucial factor for the growth of the next generation of the Zhu family. Qin Shing was not at the Shishan villa tonight. Although it was not far from the community where the old lady lived, he would not take the initiative to contact his grandmother before the old lady took the initiative to summon him. Otherwise, he would be disliked by the whole Zhu family. Today, an old friend came to Shanghai. Although Qin Shing was busy with trivial things, he still had time to invite his old friend to dinner. This old friend was Xue Qinyan, who happened to come to Beijing on a business trip. She hesitated for a long time and finally called Qin Shing, for fear that Qin Shing would be too busy and disturb her. What to eat was not important. Xue Qinyan just wanted to see Qin Shing, so she asked Qin Shing to find a food stall casually. She could go to Qin Shing directly after she finished her work, so Qin Shing did not need to go to the city. Finally, Qin Shing chose the food stall that he happened to pass by that day. At this time, Xue Qinyan had not come yet, so Qin Shing randomly ordered 2 cold dishes. The boss took the initiative to talk to Qin Shing and talked about the interesting things that happened that night. He did not expect to see Qin Shing again. Only then did Qin Shing know that the man finally drank 2 bottles of beer in the rain and left. When he paid the bill, the boss gave the man Qin Shing's contact information. After the man took the note, he said, "If you see him again, tell him that when I return to Beijing again, I will invite him to dinner." Qin Shing felt that it was quite interesting. As for whether he could have this meal in the future, he did not know. What he had experienced during this period of time made him realize that it was really hard to fight against fate. Everyone could say that they were in control of their own fate, but in the face of the real world, who could fight against it? It did not take long for Xue Qinyan to come here. She directly took a taxi and came here. Such a royal sister appearing in such an environment in the food stall was really out of place. It could not help but attract the surrounding people to point at her, and even the boss looked at her a few more times. However, everyone was not curious. After all, the man sitting opposite the royal sister drove a luxury car to eat at the food stall. It seemed that there was a driver and bodyguard. It was normal to be accompanied by a beautiful woman. After all, the world of the rich was beyond their understanding. After sitting down, Xue Qinyan smiled and complained, "This place is so far away. I definitely can't find it without the GPS." Qin Shing chuckled and said, "I said that I would go to find you, but you insisted on coming here. Later, I can only ask the driver to send you back. Otherwise, how can I dare to rest assured? Are you feeling sorry for me?" Xue Qinyan said half-jokingly. Qin Shing nodded and said, "You are my sister, I should feel sorry for you." Xue Qinyan smiled and did not speak. She just looked down at the menu. Their relationship had reached a point where there was no more breakthrough. It seemed that both of them knew each other's feelings, but no one was willing to take a step further. Moreover, Qin Shing did not have time to care about these feelings. After ordering, Xue Qinyan ordered a beer and poured herself a glass. Then she looked up and asked, "Is it difficult during this period of time?" "Very difficult," Qin Shing replied truthfully. Xue Qinyan asked again, "Very tired?" "Very tired." "Can you still bear it?" "I have to bear it even if I can't. I have no choice." Qin Shing sighed and said. Xue Qinyan continued to ask, "Do you regret coming back to the Qin family?" Qin Shing looked into the distance and said thoughtfully, "There's nothing to regret. This is what I should experience. Even if it's not now, it will be in the future. Maybe after I get through this, everything will be fine. Xue Qinyan suddenly held Qin Sheng's hand and said, "Then I will wait for you." Qin Sheng was a little overwhelmed. Xue Qinyan did not go further. After letting go of his hand, she said, "I have asked all the questions I need to ask. Today, I am just here to drink with you. There is no need to get drunk. Let's drink until we are drunk." Okay. Qin Sheng smiled and said. At this time, what he needed most was a drinking buddy. For the rest of the time, Xue Qinyan really did not ask anything. She just accompanied Qin Sheng to drink and talked about the things in Shanghai. For example, Hao Lei was almost fully recovered, and he said that he would come to Beijing to help Qin Sheng. Shangshan Ruoxue did not have Qin Sheng now, and everything was going on as usual. As for Lin Su, Xue Qinyan helped Lin Su a lot. The two of them were now best friends who talked about everything. They often went shopping, watched movies, ate, and so on. When Qin Sheng was not in Shanghai, Xue Qinyan helped him take care of Lin Su. They did not drink much. Qin Sheng drank 6 bottles and Xue Qinyan drank 4. It was almost time. Qin Sheng asked Brother Wu to send Xue Qinyan back. When Xue Qinyan left, she was a little reluctant. She was more worried about Qin Sheng. There was one thing she did not tell Qin Sheng. After hesitating for a long time, she finally gave up. Because Lin Su had told him not to say it first, Xue Qinyan could only bear it. In the morning, when everyone woke up, it was already raining outside. The weather in summer was so temperamental. The old lady woke up a little late today. Maybe she did not have a good rest last night. She looked a little tired. After breakfast, she said that she was going to visit an old friend. Zhu Qingwen went out early in the morning. Wu Yajun also went back home last night. So the others could not make up their minds. The old lady was a little angry. The others nodded and agreed. Of course, they would bring the nanny and medical staff, in case of any accident. No one could bear this responsibility. After leaving the community, the old lady did not tell the driver the specific location. She just asked the driver to drive to the city. After entering the city, the old lady said that she was going to Dongqing district. The driver did not think much. It was not until they reached Dongqing district that the old lady told him the destination. Zhu Qingwen had been calling the old lady to ask where she was going. When he knew the place that the old lady wanted to go, Zhu Qingwen's face changed instantly. He rushed there without hesitation. Chapter 907. Of course, the old lady would not tell them where she was going. If she told them the destination directly, it would be very troublesome. For example, her son and daughter would ask her what she was going to do there. As long as she wanted to go there, no one could stop her. However, the old lady did not want to cause so much trouble, so she went out in such a low-key manner. In an alley north of Dengshiku West Street, the Qin family's Sihiyuan was hidden. There were several big shots of other families living in this alley. However, this alley was not very peaceful these days. It was unusually lively. You could often meet all kinds of strangers in the alley. They kept an eye on the inside and outside of the alley, especially the gate of the Qin family. If there was any movement, they would rush over immediately, like a swarm of locusts. Those who could live here were either rich or noble. Most of them did not like to be disturbed by others. In the end, they had no choice but to stay here for a while. Of course, they knew what was going on and what had happened to the Qin family, but they did not have much contact with the Qin family before. Today, the alley was suddenly a little quiet, not as lively as before. It seemed that there were patrol cars at the entrance of the alley, forbidding strange cars from entering. The locusts that had been hiding here were finally driven away, but they did not leave. Instead, they gathered at the entrance of the alley and around it. The more noisy it was, the more they knew that there must be big news. Why were they driven away suddenly? That was because Zhu Weigua had called to arrange it. The old lady suddenly went to the Qin family's Sihiyuan without warning. Zhu Weigua naturally did not want more people to know such a big thing, which would release a different message to the outside world. People would subconsciously think that the Zhu family was on the Qin family's side. Before he figured out a solution, Zhu Weigua did not want to make a decision so easily. Zhu Weigua learned about it from Zhu Qingwen, who was on her way as soon as possible. She did not expect that the old lady would suddenly go to the Qin family's Sihiyuan with such a big fanfare. Everyone knew what it meant. No matter what the old lady was up to, Zhu Qingwen had to rush over as soon as possible and control the matter within a certain range. This was also why Zhu Weigua had forcibly cleared the place. At the same time, he had already informed the publicity system that this matter must not be known to more people. At this time, the old lady's Buick GL8 had arrived at the entrance of the alley of the Qin family's Sihiyuan. There were already several police cars on the way. The old lady already knew what was going on, which was within her expectation, so there was no need to make a fuss. The Buick GL8 finally stopped at the gate of the Qin family's Sihiyuan. With the help of the nanny and the medical staff, the old lady slowly walked to the gate. She quietly looked at the old Sihiyuan of the Qin family's Sihiyuan, which looked quite imposing. It must have cost a lot to build this gate. After all, the son-in-law was not short of money. The old lady glanced at the driver, who quickly walked over and rang the doorbell. After a while, the small door of the Sihiyuan of the Qin family was opened from the inside. A bodyguard of the Qin family walked out and asked impolitely, "Who are you looking for?" During this period of time, the Qin family had been in such turmoil. Everyone in the Qin family knew that the masters of the Qin family had all left. Outside, there were reporters, media outlets, and so on who wanted to find out inside information. Every day, there were all kinds of unknown visitors disturbing the Qin family. The Qin family's bodyguards were already tired of it. Most of them ignored them after seeing the surveillance cameras. However, the old lady and the others were a little special, so they sent a bodyguard. The driver wanted to say something, but the old lady took the initiative to step forward and said politely, "I'm Qin Xing and Qin Rant's grandmother. Please tell them to come back to see me." The old lady's words caused the Qin family's bodyguard's brain to crash instantly. What was going on? This old lady was actually the grandmother of the two masters of the Qin family? In other words, this old lady was Master Qin's mother-in-law, the biological mother of the late mistress of the Qin family? The bodyguard of the Qin family seemed to have heard about this, but he had never seen this old lady before, so he didn't know if what she said was true. Just when he was about to say that he should report to the police, the driver pushed him away. With the help of the nanny and the medical staff, the old lady slowly walked into the Sihiyuan of the Qin family, which she had never been to before. The old lady had been in Siju City for so many years and had seen all kinds of Sihiyuan. She was not curious about the Sihiyuan of the Qin family, which was neither small nor big. It was nothing more than a matter of spending more money. Anyway, Qin Chang'an was not short of money. After the Qin family's bodyguard came to his senses, he hurriedly ran in to report to the supervisor. The supervisor was wondering what was going on, and then he understood. The supervisor did not dare to delay. He immediately called Gongsun and reported the whole thing. Gongsun had seen the old lady of the Zhu family before. After hearing it, he was sure that it must be the old lady of the Zhu family, who was Qin Sheng and Qin Rant's grandmother. This was definitely a big deal for the whole Qin family. Old Lady Zhu had never entered the gate of the Qin family's Sihiyuan. This time, she took the initiative to come here when the Qin family was in danger. What did this mean? Gongsun dared not think too much or deeply, because things had gone beyond his imagination. He immediately ordered all the people of the Qin family to take good care of old Lady Zhu, and he, young lady and young master rushed back to the Qin family's Sihiyuan. In the Qin family's West Mountain villa, after hanging up the phone, Gongsun ran into the living room excitedly and shouted, "Young master, young lady, something happened, something big happened." In the living room, Qin Sheng and Qin Ran were chatting, and Zhao Anji, who was not far away, was also talking on the phone. Gongsun lost his composure and shouted, which surprised everyone. They looked at each other, not knowing what had happened. Qin Ran came to her senses and asked, "Uncle Gongsun, what's wrong with you?" Gongsun had been restraining his emotions when he answered the phone just now. At this time, he could not control himself anymore. He shouted anxiously, "Young lady, young master, hurry up, go back to the Sihiyuan." Go back to the Sihiyuan? What on earth happened? Qin Sheng was even more confused. At this time, Gongsun hurriedly explained, "Old Lady Zhu came to our Qin family. Old Lady Zhu came and asked you to go back quickly. Hurry up, hurry up." Gongsun's words made everyone except Qin Sheng dumbfounded. Wasn't Old Lady Zhu in Shanghai? How could she appear in Beijing and suddenly go to the Qin family? This was impossible. Qin Ran did not believe it and said, "Uncle Gongsun, are you kidding me? How could Grandma be in Beijing? Why didn't I know?" Qin Ran certainly did not believe it. It was such a big deal that Grandma returned to the capital. If it was true, small aunt and uncle would definitely inform her as soon as possible. So she did not believe it. But this time it was true. The other people of the Zhu family did not tell her that old lady had returned to the capital. What about Qin Sheng? What was he doing? What was he thinking about? At this moment, Qin Sheng sat on the sofa and was lost in thought. He had a smile on his face, but he did not say anything. Because it was finally coming. He knew that Grandma would contact them sooner or later. It was only a matter of time. How could Grandma not tell them that she had returned to Beijing? Could it be that she would keep it a secret forever? Impossible. Moreover, he had already guessed that Grandma must have returned to the capital for the Qin family. Otherwise, how could she suddenly return to Beijing without any warning? But why did Grandma and the Zhu family hide it? That was because the Zhu family had not reached an agreement on the Qin family's matter. Otherwise, they would have contacted them long ago. Now, his grandmother finally contacted them in such a high-profile way, which made Qin Sheng think of many possibilities. However, he was not sure about it yet. After confirming these things, he also confirmed the Zhu family's final stance on the matter of the Qin family. Qin Sheng's eyes lit up. So after Qin Sheng came to his senses, he could not wait to go back to the Qin family's Sihiyuan. Now the most important thing was to see his grandmother. After Qin Sheng stood up, he directly held his sister's hand and shouted, "Sister, come home with me to see Grandma." Seeing Qin Sheng's look, Qin Ran obviously knew more. She asked, "What on earth is going on?" "I don't have time to explain it to you. Let's talk on the way," Qin Sheng said in a hurry. Then he ran out with Qin Ran. Outside, Chang Baji had already arranged a car to escort Qin Sheng and Qin Ran back to the Qin family's Sihiyuan. Gongsun was not in a hurry to leave. It did not matter whether he went back or not. After all, old Lady Zhu wanted to see Qin Sheng and Qin Ran, which was the most important thing. On the other side, Zhao Anji looked at Gongsun and asked, "Is old Lady Zhu really back?" Gongsun replied with absolute certainty, "If nothing goes wrong, it should be old Lady Zhu." The Zhu family finally took action, Zhao Anji said with some relief and some grievance. She did not expect that it was the Zhu family who came in the end. The Qin family had already owed the Zhu family so much. Would they continue to owe the Zhu family? Some things could not be too optimistic, and some things could not be too pessimistic. Gongsun was still not sure what was going on, nor did he dare to answer whether the Zhu family would take action or not. He just said, "Aren't you going back?" "I won't go back." Zhao Anji shook her head and said. Now she only needed to wait for the news. There was no need for her to go back and get involved in this matter. The old lady only wanted to see Qin Ran and Qin Xing, not her. Moreover, she had offended a lot of people in the Zhu family because of Qin Ran and Qin Xing's mother. This was also the reason why Zhu Qingwen was so tough when she saw her. Even the old lady did not have a good impression of her at that time. In the Qin family Sihiyuan, everyone in the Qin family was a little uneasy. Because this gray-haired old lady was really the grandmother of young Master and young Mississippi. No one dared to treat her lightly. They were busy as if they were walking on thin ice, for fear of displeasing the old lady. After the old lady came in, she sat in the yard. The servants of the Qin family asked the old lady to go in and wait, but the old lady refused and said that she could just sit in the yard and wait. No one knew what the old lady was thinking, so they could only listen to her. The old lady did not wait for Qin Ran and Qin Xing, but her daughter Zhu Qingwen arrived first. Seeing her daughter's face, the old lady knew that she was a little angry this time. Chapter 908. The Zhu family didn't want to get involved, but now they had to. The old lady's actions disrupted all the plans of the Zhu family. Now the Zhu family was completely led by the nose by the old lady, but they could do nothing about it. After all, the old lady was the stabilizing force of the Zhu family. However, no matter what, Zhu Qingwen was still a little angry about the old lady's behavior of acting arbitrarily without informing them, which meant that she completely ignored their existence. She felt that even if the old lady wanted to help the Qin family, she should discuss a practical way instead of acting rashly. This was tantamount to putting the Zhu family in a dilemma. Was the old lady completely forcing the other members of the Zhu family to make a choice? Therefore, Zhu Qingwen was really a little angry this time. Seeing her daughter's pale face, the old lady naturally knew that she was angry. However, the old lady didn't intend to explain. She had her own reasons for doing so. She just didn't want others to interfere with her plan. It would be bad if too many people knew about it. Zhu Qingwen walked quickly to the old lady. No matter how angry she was, she couldn't lose her temper. After all, this was her mother. Zhu Qingwen had no choice but to complain. "Mom, what are you doing? Why didn't you say hello?" The members of the Qin family had met Zhu Qingwen and knew that she was the aunt of the young master and the young lady, so the old lady's identity was confirmed. At this time, Zhu Qingwen waved her hands to signal the others to leave. The members of the Qin family all went back to their rooms, leaving only the members of the Zhu family in the yard. The old lady also knew that it was inappropriate. Although she was in the wrong, she still wanted to save face. She replied with a smile, "You are too busy. I won't bother you." Hearing the old lady's words, Zhu Qingwen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She sighed helplessly and said, "Mom, can you discuss with us if you have any problems in the future? At least let us know." "It's nothing. I just want to see my grandson and granddaughter. I haven't seen them for a long time. I miss them so much. I don't know if they have become thinner or fatter," the old lady said with grievance. Hearing that, Zhu Qingwen was even more speechless. She said helplessly, "Qin Ran and Qin Xing no? They should be on their way here," the old lady said casually. Since she came back, the old lady had not rested because of the Qin family. Today she was in a good mood. She waited quietly for her grandson and granddaughter to come, but she didn't know what the final result would be. This was the only way she could think of. After all, she also had to consider the Zhu family. She could not do things her own way. She had to weigh the pros and cons before doing anything. Consequently, the old lady had been quite tired these 2 days. Qin Xing and Qin Xing could not help each other. Children and grandchildren had their own blessings. This was all the old lady could do. She did not want to force Qin Xing like this because it would hurt a lot of people. Hence, the final choice was still left to Qin Xing. Different choices meant different result. No matter what the result was, he had to accept it. Zhu Qingwen still could not figure out what the old lady wanted to do. She also knew that she would not get an answer no matter how much she asked. She could only wait with the old lady. She just hoped that when she saw Qin Sheng and Qin Ran later, they would not blame her. After all, she had been hiding the fact that the old lady had returned to Jing City from them. There was some distance from the Qin family's West Mountain Villa to the Dengshiku Alley in the Dongqing district. However, the old lady was not in a hurry. Anyway, she had nothing to do. The servants of the Qin family moved a table over and prepared tea, fruits, and snacks for the old lady and Zhu Qingwen. They were a little nervous when the masters of the Qin family were not here, so they served them cautiously. After a long time, Qin Sheng and Qin Ran finally arrived at the alley. They had not been back for a few days. Although nothing had changed here, the atmosphere was different after all. They saw the police cars at the alley entrance and the strange cars, which were all expected. On the way, Qin Sheng had already explained to Qin Ran that his grandmother had returned to Beijing a few days ago. Qin Ran was shocked for a long time before she came to her senses. She asked Qin Sheng why he did not tell her. Qin Sheng had to explain that he did not know either. It was Zhu Jiao who secretly told him. Originally, he wanted to tell his sister Qin Ran, but he was not sure what the Zhu family meant. For example, why did his grandmother suddenly come back? Why didn't the Zhu family inform them to wait? So he did not tell his sister. After Qin Sheng explained, Qin Ran could understand. How could she not know what Qin Sheng was worried about? His grandmother suddenly came back to Jing City and did not tell them. Obviously, she came back because of the Qin family. Otherwise, why didn't the Zhu family tell them? Now, his grandmother suddenly went to the Sihiyuan of the Qin family and asked them to go back. Obviously, all the mysteries were going to be solved. Qin Ran was inexplicably nervous. It seemed that many things had been beyond their ability. She did not know what would happen today. The bodyguards of the Qin family had been waiting at the door for a long time. It was rare that so many big shots came to the Sihiyuan of the Qin family today. Since the masters were not here, they were not confident. When they saw Qin Sheng and Qin Ran getting out of the car, they hurried to greet them. After a short conversation, Qin Sheng and Qin Ran already knew what was going on. They walked into the yard unhurriedly and saw their grandmother and small aunt sitting there from afar. Although they had seen their grandmother and small aunt many times, they felt different this time. However, Qin Ran and Qin Sheng still looked very calm. At least they didn't seem to have much emotional fluctuations on the surface. When they were about to stand in front of the old lady and Zhu Qingwen, Qin Sheng and Qin Ran said tacitly, "Grandma, small aunt." The old lady smiled and waved her hand. Come here, come here. Let Grandma have a good look at my two poor children." Zhu Qingwen was a little embarrassed. However, she had expected this scene. They would meet sooner or later, but she did not expect that they would meet like this. They wanted to take the initiative, but it did not occur to them that they would meet in this way. Qin Ran held the old lady's weak hand and said obediently, "Grandma, when did you come back? Why didn't you tell us?" Qin Ran behaved the same as before. She had always been a good girl in the Zhu family. The Zhu family loved her the most. She had always been like this, and everyone was used to her. Qin Sheng echoed his sister and said, "That's right, Grandma. Why did you come back all of a sudden?" "Well, I missed you. You were all busy and had no time to go back to see me, so I had to come to see you," the old lady said happily. At this time, the old lady was not thinking about anything else. She was purely happy to see her two grandchildren. Qin Sheng said in a hurry, "Grandma, if you miss us, just give us a call. We will go to Shanghai to see you. You are not in good health, and you have to suffer so much. We feel sorry for you." No. I will stay in Beijing in the future. I will not go back to Shanghai. I can see you often," the old lady said with a smile. Qin Ran could see that her grandmother was very weak. She said worriedly, "Grandma, how are you? Did you listen to the doctor's words? Did you take your medicine on time?" Don't worry about me. I'm fine. I'm fine. The old lady smiled from ear to ear. But then she said with some grievances, "Let me take a good look at you. Then, how are you? Have you been bullied?" Chin Ran was very touched, but she still replied with a forced smile, "Grandma, we are also fine. Don't worry." At this time, the old lady's smile suddenly disappeared. She was even more depressed. She said, "How are you? Are you really fine? Do you really think that I don't know anything? Are you still going to hide it from me? Why don't you tell me?" When the old lady finished her words, Chin Ran, who had been acting, couldn't stand it anymore. She instantly lost control of her emotions and burst into tears. She buried her head in the old lady's lap and burst into tears. She was a girl, a well-behaved girl who had been raised in the palm of the hands of the Zhu and Qin families. She had never experienced such setbacks and pressures. She kept telling herself to be strong, but more and more things made her feel suffocated. She had lost control of her emotions many times and cried secretly many times. Every time she cried, she told herself to be strong and not to cry anymore. However, when she saw and heard what her grandmother had said, she still couldn't stand it. Since she was a child, her grandmother had always been the biggest spiritual harbor in her heart. She could shelter her in any way. That was why Chin Ran suddenly broke down. Because this was her grandmother, the person who loved her the most. The old lady was also a little surprised. It didn't occur to her that her granddaughter, whom she loved the most, would suddenly burst into tears. It could be seen how much she had suffered during this period. The old lady felt even more sorry for her. Her eyes also turned red. She comforted her granddaughter and said, "Ran Ran, be good. Cry if you want to. In the future, as your grandmother, no one dares to bully you. I will support you." Zhu Qingwen felt a little sorry and embarrassed. After all, they had hidden it from the old lady, Qin Sheng and Qin Ran. That was why they met now. Maybe the old lady would teach them a lesson later. Zhu Qingwen was also helpless, because the Zhu family had to do this. If the old lady hadn't suddenly found out about this, they might have continued to hide it. However, at this time, Zhu Qingwen could only comfort Qin Ran first. Otherwise, the old lady would definitely be sad. How could her body bear it? Qin Sheng, who was by the old lady's side, didn't think too much, because this storm involved too many people. Even his grandmother was involved, which was what Qin Sheng didn't want to see. Because his grandmother was already so old and in poor health, it was unnecessary for her to take care of this matter. What was left was that he felt sorry for his sister. Seeing his sister crying like this, Qin Sheng really felt sorry for her. He should have protected his sister well and supported the Qin family. However, it seemed that his ability was limited now, which led to such an ending. After a while, Qin Ran finally stopped crying. She raised her head and wiped her tears. Looking at the old lady with tears in her eyes, she said, "I'm sorry, Grandma. I'm fine. I'm just too happy to see you. I miss you so much." The old lady patted her granddaughter's shoulder and said, "You don't need to say anything. I know. This time, I'm here to help you deal with this matter. You have to trust me." Qin Ran didn't want her grandmother to be involved in this matter, but it seemed that her grandmother had already prepared for it. She could only nod heavily. At this time, the old lady let go of Qin Ran and suddenly said to Qin Sheng, who was by her side, "Sheng, come in with me. I have something to tell you." Qin Sheng was a little surprised. It didn't occur to him that his grandmother would suddenly talk to him. Zhu Qingwen and Qin Ran were also a little surprised. They didn't know what the old lady wanted to say to Qin Sheng. After Qin Sheng came to his senses, he could only nod slightly. It was meaningless to think too much. He should figure out what his grandmother wanted to talk to him first. Maybe he would know what he needed to know. Chapter 909. The old lady stood up shakily. Qin Shing quickly held her and walked into the main hall of the Qin family. Chang Baji had asked all the people of the Qin family to leave to make space for Qin Shing and the old lady in case they were disturbed by outsiders. Zhu Qingwen and Qin Ran watched the old lady and Qin Shing walk into the main hall. The old lady did not discuss her plan with the rest of the Zhu family. It seemed that she did not need them, but she also disrupted the rest of the Zhu family. The Zhu family was in a mess now. They did not know what the old lady wanted to do. They could only take one step at a time. After the old lady and Qin Shing walked into the main hall, only Zhu Qingwen, Qin Ran, and Zhu Qingwen were left in the yard. Zhu Qingwen felt sorry for Qin Ran. She held Qin Ran's cold hands and wiped away the tears on her face. "Your makeup is ruined. You don't look pretty anymore." And Qin Ran was a little embarrassed. Zhu Qingwen sat down with Qin Ran and chatted with her. "Are you angry at me?" Qin Ran shook her head hard. She had already thought it through. It was the Qin family who caused trouble for the Zhu family. How could they blame the Zhu family? At first, she had some complaints, but the more she thought about it, the more she understood. The Zhu family did not have to pay for the Qin family's trouble. If it were not for her and her brother, the Zhu family would not care about it at all. Moreover, the Zhu family had helped them. Moreover, the Zhu family had taken the initiative to get involved for them. What else could she say? "It's good that you are not angry. You have to understand aunt and uncle. If it were other things, we would definitely help you. But this matter has a great impact. No one knows who will be affected. So we have to be careful," Zhu Qingwen explained. Qin Ran nodded silently. "Aunt, my brother and I know. Grandma really cares about you." Zhu Qingwen sighed. "Do you know why we didn't tell you when Grandma came back? That's because she didn't discuss it with us. We couldn't stop her from coming back. I had to come back with her. She didn't want us to tell you. So don't blame us." Hearing this, Qin Ran finally understood. No wonder they hadn't told them about it for so long. Qin Ran asked thoughtfully, "Grandma, did you come back this time for the sake of our family?" Zhu Qingwen asked back, "What do you think?" "I think so," Qin Ran said in a low voice. Otherwise, how could her grandma suddenly come back and go to the Qin family's house? Grandma had never been here before. After her mother passed away, she didn't like her father very much. Zhu Qingwen continued, "It should be said that Grandma came back for you, not for Dad. She is more worried about you. As for Dad's affairs, I think she will not interfere. This is also Grandma's bottom line." Qin Ran frowned and pondered. It seemed to be true. After coming to her senses, she said, "Small aunt, why did Grandma come to us today?" Zhu Qingwen shook her head and smiled bitterly. "To be honest, even we don't know what Grandma is going to do, let alone what she and Qin Shing are going to talk about. Now we can only wait for Qin Shing to come out. Anyway, Grandma is definitely doing this for your own good." Qin Ran was a little surprised. She didn't expect that even her aunt didn't know. She could only wait. In the main hall of the Qin family, old Mrs. Qin was already sitting on the rosewood chair. The door of the main hall was closed and the others were far away from them, so that they could not hear them. Qin Shing stood next to old Mrs. Qin anxiously, waiting for her scolding. Old Mrs. Qin looked at the main hall casually and snorted. Qin Chang'an really knows how to enjoy life. No wonder he was caught. I think he deserved it. Old Mrs. Qin said such a sentence. Qin Shing didn't know what to say for a while. He could only keep silent. Anyway, he knew that old Mrs. Qin didn't like the old man. At this time, old Mrs. Qin looked at Qin Shing and said, "Shing, today I don't treat you as my grandson, but as a man of the Qin family. This is also the reason why I went to you, but I didn't care about your feelings. I will say what should be said. It's your choice. Anyway, this is the last chance given by me and the Qin family. From now on, I won't interfere in anything of the Qin family. If you suffer or are bullied, don't blame me, uncle or small aunt. This is your choice. You have to bear the consequences because you are a man. Qin Shing had never seen his grandmother speak in such a way and attitude. Although he looked calm, his heart was already full of ups and downs. On one hand, he was sure that his grandmother came back and suddenly came to the Qin family for the Qin family. On the other hand, his grandmother's words were very serious, which gave Qin Shing a lot of pressure. He didn't know what she was going to say. In the end, Qin Shing said slowly, "Grandma, go ahead." Old Mrs. Qin said seriously, "I already know what happened to the Qin family. I think you know it better than me. Dad's case involves many aspects, and it may be far more serious than you think. Although I said that I won't help you, I came back this time for you and sister. This is what I promised your mother. So as long as I help you, I will help Dad. This is the truth, whether I admit it or not." The atmosphere in the living room was very depressing. Qin Shing felt a little breathless. After hearing what his grandmother said, Qin Shing replied, "Grandma, I know. Secondly, you have to be clear that I'm helping you, not my father. Therefore, no matter if it's me or the Zhu family, it's impossible for the Zhu family to go all out, because the Zhu family can't afford the price. I can't do that either. That's the bottom line of the Zhu family. Even if uncle and uncle also committed a crime, the Zhu family can't do that. Therefore, I can only help you to avoid this storm. As for how much Dad can benefit from following you, it's up to God. If you still insist on Dad's matter at that time, it's your own business. It has nothing to do with me or the Zhu family," the old lady continued. She wanted to make all the causes and effects clear to Qin Shing so that he could make the final choice and not resent the Zhu family because of this. Qin Shing was not a 3-year-old child. He had thought about many things, so he said firmly, "Grandma, even if you don't help the Qin family, my sister and I can understand. The Zhu family is the Qin family, and the Qin family is the Qin family. I know it very well. Moreover, you are helping us now, which has put you in a difficult position. I am not that greedy." Hearing what Qin Shing said, the old lady felt a little sad. This was not something he should bear at his age, but he could only endure it. So the old lady changed her tone and said kindly, "Xing, I am very happy to hear that. Grandma, just say what you want to say. I can bear it. Moreover, as you said, the final choice is up to me," Qin Shing replied calmly. The old lady nodded with satisfaction. Her grandson had some backbone. The Qin family was not the Qin family. If men did not have backbone, the Qin family would not be the Qin family. Although he did not like Qin Chang'an these years, Qin Chang'an had never asked the Zhu family for help. At this time, the old lady said seriously, "Xing, the storm in the Qin family is too big. Dad is involved in too many things. You will definitely do your best for him. However, the final result may not be what you want. I don't want you to be involved in it, so I have to show my face. As long as you promise me one thing, you and your brother will definitely be safe. Dad's final result will be much better than your efforts." "Grandma, what is it?" Qin Shing had a bad premonition in his heart. What could change the direction of the whole thing? Or as long as he agreed? How much power did he have? The old lady let out a long sigh of relief and said helplessly, "The Qin family and the Song family will unite by marriage, and you will be engaged to Ryu." In order not to irritate Qin Shing too much, the old lady just said engagement instead of marriage, so that Qin Shing would not have a big reaction. After hearing what his grandmother said, Qin Shing's mind instantly went blank, as if he had been struck by 5 thunders. He was stunned and did not say anything for a long time. He finally understood why his grandmother asked him to promise this thing. Qin Shing's reaction was within the old lady's expectation. If Qin Shing agreed, it meant that he would give up Lin Su. It was not easy for him to go through thick and thin with Lin Su. Moreover, their relationship was very firm. How could he give up Lin Su like this? How could he face Lin Su? How could he feel at ease? Would he not feel guilty for the rest of his life? Moreover, he had always wanted to marry Lin Su. However, on one side was Lin Su, and on the other side was the Qin family. How could he choose? It was difficult to choose. Although the old lady also liked Lin Su very much and was very satisfied with her, she had no other way. Now the best way was this. She did not need the help of the Zhu family or the Song family. As long as Qin Shing agreed to the marriage, many things could be easily solved. Therefore, the old lady could only give this difficult problem to Qin Shing. At this moment, Qin Shing's brain worked very fast, and he thought about a lot of things. Was this really the only way? After a long time, Qin Shing finally came to his senses. During this time, the old lady did not urge him. Qin Shing replied calmly, "Grandma, even if I agree, will the Song family be willing? Will Grandpa Song be willing? Will Ruyu be willing?" Qin Shing's calmness surprised the old lady, but she did not care about it. Instead, she replied, "Maybe you don't know that I have an engagement with Ruyu. It was made by Grandpa and Grandpa Song years ago, but he did not know about it. So you don't need to worry about the Song family. Moreover, I have talked with Grandpa Song about this matter. He has no objection. As long as Ruyu is willing, no one will stop you." This news shocked Qin Shing even more. He did not expect that there was an engagement between him and Song Ruyu. It seemed a bit ridiculous. No wonder Song Hushing was so disgusted with him. It turned out that Song Hushing had known about it. Did Song Ruyu know about it? Qin Shing gritted his teeth and continued to ask, "Grandma, will Ruyu be willing? I don't know yet. I have to know my choice first. Otherwise, everything will be meaningless," the old lady replied. Qin Shing thought for a long time and did not continue to ask about the following things. Instead, he asked, "Grandma, what if I refuse?" Chapter 9-10. This was the first time that the old lady and Qin Shing would have such a formal chat. It should be called a conversation. The old lady did not treat Qin Shing as a child, but as a man of the Qin family who could be completely responsible for her. So in the end, Qin Shing had to bear all the consequences by himself. Qin Shing was also very clear about this point. Therefore, he did not treat himself as his grandmother's beloved grandson to fool around. Instead, he listened to the old lady's lecture obediently and then made the final choice, a choice that concerned the future of the Qin family. Now, the old lady had come up with a solution. What would Qin Shing choose? Qin Shing had asked what he should have asked. In the end, he asked what if he refused? The old lady's expression changed slightly, but it was within her expectation. After all, she just gave Qin Shing a choice. She was not completely sure that Qin Shing would definitely agree. Even if Qin Shing did not agree, the old lady would not be surprised. Deep down, she hoped that Qin Shing would not agree. The Qin family was the Qin family and Qin Shing was Qin Shing. Qin Shing did not need to tie his life to the Qin family. He could completely separate from the current Qin family. In this way, he would not have any regrets. Even if the Qin family was gone, there was still the Zhu family. Qin Shing would still be Qin Shing. Maybe one day when Qin Shing stood up again, he would be the Qin family. After the old lady came to her senses, she stared at this young but experienced grandson meaningfully and said, "If you refuse, you are still my grandson. However, the Zhu family and I will not interfere with anything of the Qin family from now on. You and your sister should not blame the Zhu family for being ruthless. Whatever happens to the Qin family, it is our business." After hearing this, Qin Shing understood the old lady's meaning. This was the only and last chance that the Zhu family would give to the Qin family. If the Qin family refused, the Zhu family would not interfere with anything from then on. "I see, Grandma," Qin Shing said lightly. The old lady said calmly, "Shing you can choose now. I hope you will not regret whatever choice you make." The old lady wanted to say a lot of words, but she finally felt that she could not be too kind at this time. The more she said, the more hesitant and indecisive Qin Shing would be. In the end, Qin Shing would be the one suffering. It was better for him to make a choice directly and bear the rest slowly. How could Qin Shing make a choice in such a short time? He said with a little pain, "Grandma, can you give me some time? Let me think it over." The old lady was already very pleased that Qin Shing said that he would consider it. She was afraid that Qin Shing would agree without hesitation. In that case, this grandson of hers would be too heartless, because he had let down a woman he could not let down. Consequently, the old lady did not reject him. Instead, she agreed directly and said, "Okay, I'll give you enough time to think about it. You can tell me when you've made up your mind." "Thank you, Grandma," Qin Shing said lightly. The old lady was not used to her grandson's politeness. She took Qin Shing's hand and said after a moment of hesitation, "Shinger, in fact, I hope you can refuse. You don't have to bear so much pressure. Life is a lifetime. I hope you and your sister can be safe and sound. As long as I'm here, I won't let anyone bully you. What do you think?" "Grandma, I'll think about it carefully," Qin Shing replied in a euphemistic way. He knew what his grandma meant. In fact, this was indeed a choice. However, could he really give up the current Qin family? Give up on the auntie who has been struggling to support this family? Give up that innocent and adorable little sister? If it were his sister, what would she choose? The old lady knew that Qin Shing was in a dilemma. He needed to think it over before making a choice. Consequently, she said no more. She stood up slowly and said, "Shinger, I've said what I should say. The rest is up to you." Qin Shing quickly supported his grandma and said, "Grandma, I know. Well, let's go out." "Don't let them wait for too long," the old lady said casually. Qin Shing supported the old lady and walked out slowly. The old lady's footsteps were a little unstable. She was indeed mentally exhausted because of the Qin family's affairs these days. Zhu Qingwen and Qin Ran, who were outside, heard the squeaking sound of the door opening. When they saw the old lady and Qin Shing coming out, they hurried over to support the old lady. Zhu Qingwen was too embarrassed to ask what they had talked about, but she and Qin Ran were very concerned about this issue. The old lady said directly, "Arya, it's getting late. Let's go back." Zhu Qingwen nodded with a puzzled look. Until now, she had not figured out why the old lady had come to the Qin family. Was it just to see Qin Ran and Qin Shing? What on earth had she talked about with Qin Shing? Qin Ran and Qin Shing did not keep their grandma and small aunt for long. They walked them out of the Sihiyuan in person and watched them leave the alley at the door. Then they turned around and went back to the Qin family. This scene was seen by many people hiding in the dark. At least the old lady did not care. She just wanted these people to see it and tell them not to bully her grandson and granddaughter. After Qin Shing and Qin Ran returned to the Qin family's Sihiyuan, Qin Ran could not wait to ask, "Qin Shing, what did Grandma talk about with you?" Qin Shing did not want his sister to know about this. This was his own choice. There was no need to pressure his sister. If his sister knew about it, it might cause more trouble. For Qin Shing, it was simple to say yes or no. Qin Shing explained, "Sister, we didn't talk much. Grandma just told us some things about the Qin family and advised us not to be so persistent. We can live our own life. At that time, if others still bully us, Grandma will protect us." Qin Ran felt that something was wrong, but she could not tell. She could only say, "Really?" Qin Shing held his sister's shoulder and said, "Sister, when did I lie to you? That's good." Qin Ran finally believed him. It was almost lunchtime, but Qin Ran and Qin Shing were not in a hurry to leave. They did not leave until they had lunch in the Qin family's house. Qin Shing said he was a little tired and wanted to rest. Qin Ran did not care about him. After Qin Ran left, Qin Shing went into the study and did not come out until the evening. After accompanying the old lady home, Zhu Qingwen finally could not help but ask, Mom, what did you talk about with Xing today? Nothing much. I'm just chatting with my grandson, the old lady explained with a smile. Zhu Qingwen did not believe it at all. She took a deep breath and said, Mom, although I don't know what you want to do, I think even if you want to do something, you should discuss it with us. After all, we are a family. You have to think about Big Brother and the others. What can I do as an old lady? I didn't ask for favors from the leaders, nor did I interfere with the relevant department's investigation. What are you worried about? The old lady said calmly. Zhu Qingwen still did not believe it. Mom, I always feel that you are planning something big. Planning something big? Do I have that ability? You are really good at thinking. All right, I'm tired from all this. Help me back to my room to rest. God was not willing to talk about these things. When Qin Xing made his choice and the Song family gave their response, she would naturally tell others about it. Zhu Qingwen was really helpless. She could not get any information from the old lady. She did not want the old lady to be too tired, so she had to help the old lady back to her room to have a rest. Then she reported to Big Brother what had happened today. Everything seemed to be calm, but the outside world was already turbulent. The news that the old lady of the Zhu family suddenly returned to Jing City and went to the Sihiyuan of the Qin family today spread like wildfire. It was well known that the old lady of the Zhu family had lived in Shanghai for many years. Now she suddenly came back at such an old age and went directly to the Sihiyuan of the Qin family. One should know that the old lady of the Zhu family had never been to the Sihiyuan of the Qin family. These two pieces of news shocked everyone who paid attention to the affairs of the Qin family. Maybe the Zhu family and the Qin family did not care about or imagine how powerful the two pieces of news would be. But the outside world had already been in chaos. The sixth uncle was the first to bear the brunt of this news. In everyone's opinion, the Zhu family was involved in this, and the Zhu family was going to turn the tables for the Qin family. Now everyone's opponent had changed from the declining Qin family to the rising Zhu family. Everyone was in a panic. What should they do? The result of the Chang'an family, which was supposed to be settled, suddenly changed again. Some people who were ready to enter the arena to grab the cake stopped at this time. They did not expect that the Qin family had a backup plan. The real trump card had not been played yet. They could not help but feel lucky that they did not act impulsively. Otherwise, they would have offended the Zhu family. Therefore, everyone was now watching the show, waiting to see how the sixth uncle and his group would fight with the Zhu family. The Zhu family was not the Qin family. Many people could guess how powerful the Zhu family was. There were no outsiders today. All the people present were the real big shots of the families who could directly make the decision. However, the atmosphere at this moment was not right. Everyone was silent and had different plans in mind. I already know what happened this morning. I guess you all have your own judgment. Now tell me, what are you going to do? The sixth uncle asked politely, but he was also a little panicked. His previous judgment was that the Zhu family would not be involved in this. After all, the Zhu family had too many scruples and would not take action. Moreover, the relationship between the Zhu family and the Qin family was so bad that it was unnecessary for them to get involved. However, the current situation surprised him. The old lady of the Zhu family had returned to Beijing. They were going to take action for real. The sixth uncle's plan was disrupted in an instant. He was also very clear that a crisis was coming. It was not only an external crisis but also an internal crisis. These big shots of the families had already made their own plans. None of them would face the Zhu family directly. Just as the sixth uncle was thinking, the Li family took the lead and said, "Sixth uncle, everyone, since you are not willing to take a stand, I will take a stand first. In the future, the Li family will not participate in the affairs of the Chang'an family." As expected, the Li family was really straightforward. Chapter 9:11. Husband and wife were birds in the same forest, but they flew separately in the face of disaster, let alone others. The alliance with sixth uncle as the core was really unreliable. As soon as there was a crisis, some people jumped off the boat to save their lives. They didn't care about the lives of others, nor did they care about the interests of the whole alliance. It seemed that at this time, only the one who ran fast could survive. Why did the Lee family do this? Weren't they afraid of making a mistake? At that time, the benefits that they had already obtained would be lost, and now they had offended sixth uncle and the others, which was not worth it. Because this was the final result of the Lee family's internal struggle. Even the head of the Lee family couldn't change it. They would rather give up any benefits than take the risk of offending the Zhu family, which was at the peak of its power. Most importantly, the Zhu family still had room to rise. If the Zhu family wanted to settle the score, no one would be able to escape. Old Lee, what do you mean? Su Jia squinted his eyes and asked. Obviously, he was a little angry. Those who were able to get together to play together were all equally powerful, so the Lee family did not need to be afraid of others. He smiled and said, "Everyone, there are too many things to deal with at home recently. I don't have the energy to take care of these things in Chang'an. I hope you can understand. I'll leave the rest to you." Uncle Lee, is that true? I think you are scared by the Zhu family, right? Is it necessary? We have so many families, why should we be afraid of the Zhu family? Zeyuan also echoed in a strange tone. Internal strife was the last thing sixth uncle wanted to see, but now it was happening. Sixth uncle also felt somewhat helpless. Before he came here, he had already considered this problem. The Zhu family's involvement had indeed disrupted all his plans. Old Lee, it's not very kind of you, sixth uncle said unhappily. The Lee family really didn't want to get involved in the mess of the Chang'an faction now. He smiled and said, "If you are angry, I will go to you another day to apologize. Later, I will give you some shares of the Chang'an faction. Will you be satisfied?" The shares of the Chang'an faction were real money, and the Lee family was very sincere. Hearing this, everyone was a little relieved. At the same time, they thought that the Lee family would rather give up the shares of the Chang'an faction than continue to play, which showed how determined the Lee family was. "Old Lee, are you sure?" Su Jia asked doubtfully. Mr. Lee said calmly, "It's just a small amount of shares. I don't have to lie to you." Since the Lee family was sure that they didn't want to play anymore, sixth uncle couldn't stop them. He could only say, "Lao Lee, it's okay if you don't want to get involved. I'm just afraid that you will leave us and stand on the Qin family's side. That's not right." Sixth brother, what kind of person am I? If you are willing, I can sell you the shares of Chang'an Group. If you don't want it, I'll stay neutral, Li Jia said firmly. They wanted to settle this matter as soon as possible. Sixth uncle said quietly, "Since you said so, I will believe you." With the consent of the sixth uncle, this matter was almost settled. As for whether other people were angry or not, the Li family didn't care. He immediately stood up and said, "Everyone, then I won't accompany you. I still have something to deal with. Let's get together another day." "You!" Su Jia pointed at the Li family and shouted helplessly. After saying that, Li Jia directly left sixth uncle's place. He was afraid that if he left slowly, others would regret it. Anyway, it was impossible for them to fall out with each other. As long as they could get what they wanted, it would be fine. After Li Jia left, Su Jia scolded loudly, "Ungrateful! Our Su family will never contact with the Li family again in the future. When the Qin family declined, they came to hit us when we were down. When the Zhu family came out, they immediately ran away. What are they? Since the Li family has said so, what else can we do? Anyway, at least they gave us some compensation, which is not bad," Zeyuan said quietly. After all, they didn't lose anything. The Li family also gave them shares, which was a profit. Sixth uncle was not interested in these shares. What he wanted was the whole Chang'an group. So he went straight to the point. Now that the Li family is gone, let's talk about what to do next. The Zhu family is not easy to deal with. I don't understand. With the Zhu family's status, do they dare to get involved in this matter? Aren't they afraid that others will say that they have bad table manners? Zeyuan said thoughtfully. In fact, he forgot that they didn't have good table manners, either. So no one laughed at each other. Su Jia asked tentatively, I think the Zhu family won't interfere in the Qin family's matter. They did this to frighten us at most. What's more, now that things have come to this stage, even if they take action, I don't believe they can let Qin Chang'an be safe. People all over the country are watching. They are not so fearless. Otherwise, the superiors will definitely be dissatisfied. At that time, the Zhu family will pay a big price. Old Su, you are right. I also think so. I have inquired about it. At least the Zhu family has not taken any action. So we don't have to worry so much. During this period, let's wait and see. I don't believe that the Zhu family dares to take action. If they really take action, we will have a chance to fight back. Sixth uncle said meaningfully, as if it was not a terrible thing that the Zhu family was involved in. Su Jia immediately echoed, I agree with sixth uncle. Let's wait and see. At this time, Zeyuan said, what I'm afraid of is that the other families didn't support the Qin family before because they didn't have enough reasons. Now that the Zhu family has taken action, do you think they will turn to support the Qin family? At that time, all our efforts will be in vain. Sixth uncle squinted and said, not yet. Zeyuan nodded slightly and said, then let's wait and see. The news gradually spread. As sixth uncle said, not only they had already known it, but other people also knew it, including the Yang family, who had been ambiguous before. After knowing the news, the Yang family more or less regretted that they had not directly sold their shares to the Qin family at that time. Otherwise, they would have owed the Qin family a favor. Now the Yang family was having a headache. As the matter of the Chang'an system became more and more serious, their chances of getting out of it were getting smaller and smaller. As a result, the probability of getting into trouble in the future was getting higher and higher. After Yang Yi got the news, he went to his eldest uncle's house immediately. At that time, his eldest uncle was playing chess with several old men downstairs in the residential area. The Zhu family did not avoid anything, nor did they eliminate the influence of this matter. Therefore, the news that the old lady came back and went to the Qin family spread like wildfire. Seeing Yang Yi coming, Yang Tong gave his seat to others. They did not go upstairs, but just wandered in the residential area. Yang Yi frowned and asked, Uncle, do you know what happened to the Zhu family? Yang Tong walked slowly with his hands behind his back and said, Yes. What do you want to say? Well, the Zhu family has taken action. Who dares to touch the Qin family? It would have been better if we had sold our shares to the Qin family at that time. Now, not only can we get out of it, but we can also owe them a favor. Yang Yi said with some regret. Yang Tong turned around and said to his nephew, who was smoking, If you can predict everything, what's the point of living? Qin Chang'an was arrested. No one would sell their shares to the Qin family, which will only add to our troubles. What's more, it has already happened. It's useless to regret. Uncle, what should we do now? Should we contact the Qin family again? Ask them if they still want it? Yang Yi thought for a while and said. Yang Tong shook his head directly and said, It's too late now. It's not necessary. What's more, the situation is not very clear. Let's see what the Zhu family will do next. If they really lean towards the Qin family, even if they don't want their shares, we can stand on their side. I think they won't refuse such a free deal. Yang Tong nodded and agreed. Okay, then I'll listen to you. I'll keep an eye on them recently. No matter what, the Yang family did not want to get involved in this muddy water, as long as they could get out of it perfectly. In the Qin family, a day passed quickly. Qin Shing locked himself in the study, and did not come out until now. Nobody knew what he was doing. However, Qin Shing had not given old lady Zhu a clear answer. Nobody knew what he would choose in the end. At noon the next day, Qin Shing finally went out after lunch. He thought for a long time before he made a call. After the call, he drove to the summer palace. Only after seeing her, Qin Shing knew what to choose. Otherwise, even if he chose, it would be meaningless if she refused. Therefore, Qin Shing would not make such a meaningless choice. Chapter 9:12. Of course, the person Qin Shing wanted to meet was Song Ryu. The old lady had already said that the precondition for the marriage between the Qin and the Song families was that both Qin Shing and Song Ryu had to agree. If one of them did not agree, the marriage would not come true. It did not mean that the elders of both sides had no opinion. Whether it was old Master Song or old Lady Zhu, neither of them would do such a thing to force the younger generation, nor would they trade the happiness of the younger generation. It was entirely up to them, because only in this way would they not blame anyone in the future. One day had passed and Qin Shing hadn't made a decision yet. However, he wanted to meet Song Ryu and ask her what she was thinking. If she didn't agree, Qin Shing wouldn't have to struggle anymore and could directly give his answer to the old lady. If Song Ryu agreed, they would live together in the future. If there were some barriers that could be cleared up now, they would do their best to do so now. Qin Shing didn't know whether Song Ryu knew about it or not. She should have known about it. If she didn't, it would be a good opportunity to sound her out. If she knew about it, he could ask her directly for the result. Song Ryu had been at the party school of the Central Committee for the past 2 days, so they had arranged to meet at the Summer Palace, which was opposite the party school. Qin Shing had never been to the Summer Palace before, so Song Ryu could take him there. After all, it was a royal garden in the past, and the scenery there was quite good. When it was about time, Song Ryu left the party school and bought the tickets to wait for Qin Shing. She had something to deal with in the afternoon, otherwise she wouldn't have chosen to meet him here. About a few minutes later, Qin Shing finally arrived. He saw Song Ryu standing at the door from a distance. She was still so independent. No matter where she went, Song Ryu would always be the focus of the crowd. After all, she had such an advantage because of her beauty. Today was a working day, so there weren't many tourists. Holidays and weekends were the most popular times. Even so, compared with other places, the flow of people was quite large. Chang Baji followed Qin Shing. Naturally, Chang Baji followed Qin Shing. Brother Wu had already gone to buy the ticket. The more people there were, the more dangerous it would be. Naturally, they had to be prepared. Today, Song Ryu was dressed very simply, as if she had always been so simple. She wore a white short-sleeved shirt, black trousers, and ordinary low-heeled shoes. However, her temperament could not be concealed. She kept a good figure because she had been running and practicing yoga for several days every week. She had been doing this for many years. Sorry to keep you waiting. Qin Shing seemed to be a little embarrassed to see Song Ryu again. Or maybe he was at a loss when he thought that this woman might be his lifelong partner. As Song Hushing had said, Qin Shing thought that he was not good enough for Song Ryu. Song Ryu smiled faintly and said, "No, I just got here. The party school is just across the street, and it only takes me a few minutes to walk here." "Then let's go in," Qin Shing said faintly. If it was in the past, he would have exchanged some pleasantries. However, in such an atmosphere today, Qin Shing really did not know what to say. Did Song Ryu know about it? Of course, Song Ryu knew that. She had talked to old Master Song and given him a clear answer. Last night, when Song Ryu went to visit her grandpa in the hospital, her grandpa had talked to her about it formally. At that time, her parents and her eldest uncle were also in the ward. It seemed that they had already known about it, but her grandpa had asked them to keep it a secret. Before this matter was confirmed, no one was allowed to leak it. It was just that Song Ryu did not know about it at that time. When Song Ryu walked into the ward, she felt that the atmosphere in the ward was a little strange, especially her parents' faces. They looked at her with flickering eyes. At that time, Song Ryu knew that there might be something wrong. At this time, Old Master Song said, "You guys can go out first. I have something to talk to Ryu." In the Song family, Old Master Song's authority was unquestionable and unchallenged. Over the years, Old Master Song's parents had lived under Old Master Song's protection, and their achievements were far less than Old Master Song's. They had been strictly educated since childhood, so they did not dare to refute Old Master Song's words. Most of the time, they did what Old Master Song said, and they had gotten used to it. However, Old Master Song's temper was no longer the same as before, so they lived a relatively easy life. After the elders of the Song family came out, the eldest son of the Song family went back to deal with something. The second son of the Song family and his wife sat in the living room outside, feeling somewhat restless. Song Ryu's mother was a charming middle-aged woman who had been as beautiful as a flower when she was young. Otherwise, how could she have given birth to such a beautiful woman? Song Ryu's mother, Zhang Peilon, felt somewhat embarrassed. According to Old Master Song, does he really want Ryu to marry that guy from the Qin family? If it were in the past, I wouldn't care. The Qin family is a big family with a big business. Our two families have been friends for generations, and their families are well matched. If Ryu marries him, she will not suffer much. However, the Qin family is in such a mess now. Isn't it like pushing her into a fire pit? Regarding their daughter's marriage, Old Master Song's parents had a headache. They had introduced numerous young talents in Siju City, most of whom were from rich and powerful families. However, Song Ryu had not taken a fancy to any of them, which had been a headache for them. They had not expected that they would have a bigger headache today. Tell me, why are you so snobbish? When the Qin family was at its peak, you urged Old Master Song to say that there was an engagement between the two families. You wanted to see if the Qin family would agree to let Ryu marry into the Qin family. Now that the Qin family is in trouble, why are you making such sarcastic remarks? Song Zhifeng, Song Ryu's father, said discontentedly. Zhang Peilon snorted and said, "I'm doing this for the sake of our daughter. You're just a hands-off boss who doesn't care about anything. She's your biological daughter. Why don't I care about anything? Do you think I'm not worried?" However, Old Master Song also said that this matter still depends on Yu's opinion. Elders like us will not force her. If she is willing, no one can stop her. If she is unwilling, then we don't have to worry about her. To say the least, even if she is willing, I don't think it's a bad thing to marry Qin Xing. Although the Qin family is gone, Qin Xing still has the Zhu family behind him. Have you thought about this? Look at the status of the Zhu family now. It's possible for them to go further. In the future, whether it's Ryu or He Xing, it will be of great help, especially after Old Master Song passes away, Song Zhifeng said after careful consideration. After hearing that, Zhang Peilon said thoughtfully, "Alas, after hearing what you said, it does make sense. It seems that Qin Xing is not bad. Then let's see how our daughter chooses. Let's get her married quickly. If she still can't get married, I'm going to have depression." Song Zhifeng stared at his wife and said, "Our is so outstanding. How can she not get married? Listen to what you said." Zhang Peilon smiled awkwardly and did not say anything. Now it was time to see the result. In the ward, Old Master Song sat in a wheelchair and looked at his outstanding granddaughter with a rare smile. He had high expectations for his granddaughter, but he still felt that as long as she was happy, it was enough. She did not need to chase after too many things, otherwise her life would be too tiring. Old Master Song said slowly, "Ryu, I want to talk to you about something today." "Just tell me the truth," Grandpa Xing said slowly. Hearing Old Master Song's words, Song Ryu did not know why she felt inexplicably nervous. She replied softly, "Grandpa, what do you want to say?" "Ryu is listening." Old Master Song stopped smiling and asked somewhat seriously, "Ryu, what do you think of Qin Xing?" Song Ryu was slightly surprised. She did not know why Old Master Song suddenly asked about Qin Xing. Then, smart as she was, she seemed to have guessed something. Could it be about the engagement? Song Ryu hesitated for a moment and replied, "I think he is good. We have known each other since childhood." However, he suddenly disappeared for so many years and we did not contact each other. After he came back last year, we had a lot of contact. Now we can be considered friends. Old Master Song asked knowingly, "Ryu, do you know about the Qin family?" Song Ryu found it funny and said, "Grandpa, of course I know about the Qin family. Who doesn't know about it now?" Old Master Song let out a long sigh and said, "Alas, I also have some responsibility for the Qin family's current situation. If I had stopped Qin Chang'an, things would not have ended up like this." Song Ryu hurriedly comforted him, "Grandpa, it is not your fault. Everyone has his own life and choices. No one knows what the future will be like. Uncle Qin is not the kind of person who will be influenced by others. You can't stop him." Old Master Song nodded silently and said, "You are right. All the men in the Qin family are like this. Actually, what you want to talk about today is about the Qin family and our Song family." Song Ryu asked lightly, "What is it?" Old Master Song finally stopped beating around the bush and asked directly, "Ryu, do you know about the engagement between our Song family and the Qin family?" Song Ryu's expression changed slightly. Grandpa really wanted to talk about this. She said calmly, "I know. Old Master Qin did me a big favor and made me collapse from that step. That's why the Song family is what it is today. I wanted to return the favor, but Old Master Song joked with me. I didn't take it seriously, so we made this engagement. We tried to match Qin Sheng and Ran Ran, but their characters were really not suitable for each other. I thought it was over. After all, Qin Sheng had been missing for many years. Later, he came back, so someone proposed this engagement to me and wanted me to fulfill my promise. So Grandpa wants to ask for your opinion today." Old Master Song said slowly, without any intention of forcing his granddaughter to marry him. Song Ryu was silent and didn't know how to answer. Old Master Song stared at his granddaughter and asked in a low voice, "Ryu, Grandpa wants to know if you are willing to marry Qin Xing." Song Ryu bit her lower lip. No one knew what she was thinking. This was not an ordinary multiple-choice question. It was related to her marriage and lifelong happiness. Although Song Ryu had considered this question before, she had never thought about it so seriously. Seeing that his granddaughter didn't speak, Old Master Song was afraid that she would be under too much pressure, so he continued, "Ryu, don't feel any pressure. Grandpa is just asking casually. No one will force you. If you are willing, then so be it. If you are unwilling, then so be it. After all, this is not a small matter. Don't regret it. Just follow your heart." Follow her heart? However, Song Ryu's heart was no longer calm. How could she follow her heart? Old Master Song was not in a hurry. He quietly waited for his granddaughter's answer. Chapter 9:13. Eventually, Old Master Song didn't get an answer from his granddaughter. Song Ryu asked herself to think about it. It was not an ordinary choice. It was related to her marriage and happiness, as well as the fate of the two families, especially the Qin family, which needed external factors the most. Song Ryu already knew that Old Lady Zhu had come back. Old Lady Zhu came back at this time because of the Qin family. Song Ryu didn't think too much about complicated factors. Moreover, after Old Lady Zhu came back, she went to the hospital to see her grandfather and talked a lot with him. Presumably, they had talked about this matter at that time. If she really agreed to marry Qin Shing, the Qin family and the Song family would be united by marriage. The outside world would naturally think that the Song family was on the Qin family's side. With old Lady Zhu's return, many people would not dare to provoke the Qin family anymore. However, what did it have to do with her? Song Ryu didn't say how long she would think about it. Old Master Song didn't say anything. He only said that she should think about it carefully and tell him when she made up her mind. After Song Ryu went back, she actually did not take this matter too seriously. Putting aside the stories of their childhood sweethearts, she did not have much contact with Qin Shing now. They had only met a few times this year. She was more curious about Qin Shing. She had also thought about the engagement between the two families, but it was not enough for her to make a decision directly. However, she didn't expect that Qin Shing would take the initiative to ask her out the next day. Song Ryu didn't know how to turn him down. She knew that Qin Shing should already know about it, so she agreed to meet him because she wanted to hear his thoughts. The summer palace was very large. It was next to the Yuanmingyuan Palace and covered an area of about 290 hectares. It was built by Emperor Qianlong to show his filial piety to his mother. It used to be called Qingyi Garden. It was rebuilt during the reign of Emperor Guangxu. Unfortunately, it was looted twice by the allied forces of Britain, France and the Eight-Nation Alliance. However, compared to the neighboring Yuanmingyuan Palace, the Summer Palace was the most well-preserved imperial palace. Song Ryu led Qin Shing in through the north gate. Qin Shing had never been here before, so he walked slowly. He glanced at the imperial garden that he had only heard of before. Song Ryu had been to Siju City many times, and she had done a lot of research on many well-known buildings and historical attractions in Siju City. Therefore, she acted as a tour guide for Qin Shing. Chang Baji and the others followed her at a moderate pace. They could not help but admire Song Ryu's profound knowledge. After walking through Suzhou Street and the Sifu Memorial Arch, Song Ryu wanted to continue walking with Qin Shing. However, Qin Shing turned to the left, where there were fewer people and a large pine forest. It was more suitable for the two of them to chat while walking. After all, Qin Shing did not come to visit Summer Palace today. As long as he stayed in Beijing, he would have plenty of time to visit these scenic spots. Song Ryu didn't refuse and followed him. They walked side by side, looking like a perfect couple. Those who didn't know them would think that they were a couple traveling to Beijing. Unfortunately, they didn't do anything intimate. After walking for a short distance, Qin Shing finally chose to take the initiative to ask, "Ryu, how long have we known each other?" Song Ryu said, "If you count the time when I was a child, it should be 28 years. If you don't count the more than 20 years you were missing, it should be 6 years." This answer was reasonable. Qin Shing continued to ask, "What do you think of me? When I was a child, I thought you were weird. Every time you made me cry, I would coax you. When I saw you last year, I thought you were a different person. You became more mature and steady, but I felt that you lacked the vigor of a young man." This was Qin Shing's impression of her. Qin Shing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He really didn't know what he would be like now if he hadn't left Beijing. Would he have been beaten to death? "Do you still remember what happened when you were a child?" "How come I don't remember?" Qin Shing said with a smile. Song Ryu said softly, "Some of it, but most of it was told to me by my parents when I grew up. Sometimes when Uncle Qin came to our house, he would also tell me about the past." Qin Shing said with a smile, "Oh, no wonder. I'll ask my sister later and listen to those stories when I was a child." The two of them continued to walk forward. The trees on both sides of the road seemed to be old. It seemed that different grades of trees were marked with different colors. Some were black, some were green, and some were red. Qin Shing was interested in looking for the oldest one. "Why do you have time to visit me today? You must be very busy these days." Song Ryu asked casually. Qin Shing shrugged and said, "I've accepted it. There are some things that I can't do, so I won't worry about it. What's more, it has happened and can't be changed. Why should I put so much pressure on myself? It's better to live every day. Although you said so, I don't believe you. Song Ryu pursed her lips and smiled. Qin Shing felt that no matter how much he tried, he couldn't get to the point. So he just said directly, Ryu, in fact, I'm here today to ask you about something. What is it? Song Ryu said casually. Qin Shing wanted to ask if she knew about the engagement between them, but he changed it later. Why haven't you found a boyfriend? What? Are you going to introduce a boyfriend to me? Song Ryu joked. Qin Shing shook his head and said, I'm just asking casually. This is a personal question. Can I not answer it? Song Ryu said with a smile. Qin Shing said happily, sure. But I really want to know what kind of person you like. What kind of man is good enough for you? As long as I like him, even if he is an ordinary man, I won't turn my back on him. Song Ryu said half-jokingly. She didn't take it seriously and explained to Qin Shing. Qin Shing hesitated for a moment and asked deliberately, What do you think of me? Song Ryu didn't expect that Qin Shing would ask this question. She didn't know how to answer him. She just smiled and continued to walk forward. Since he had already opened his mouth, there was no turning back. Qin Shing could only bite the bullet and say, Ryu, actually, I came to you today because I have something to ask you. Do you know about the engagement between us? Song Ryu stopped smiling when she heard this. This should be the purpose of Qin Shing's visit today. She replied seriously, I know. I've known about it for a long time. That's why I asked you. What do you think of me? If I asked you to marry me because of this engagement, would you be willing? Qin Shing used to think that he was shameless. But today, he felt that he couldn't ask this question in front of Song Ryu. He wanted to ask this question several times, but he gave up in the end. Now he had no choice but to bite the bullet and ask. Song Ryu didn't rush to answer this question. She kept walking forward. It was not hot and humid today. Song Ryu didn't know what she was thinking about. She didn't expect that Qin Shing would really ask her about this. Song Ryu sighed and said, My grandfather asked this question last night. Qin Shing was not surprised. It seemed that his grandmother and old Master Song had discussed this matter. His grandmother came to ask him, and old Master Song went back to ask Song Ryu. But he didn't know how Song Ryu had answered. What did you say? Qin Shing asked with some anxiety. Song Ryu looked back at Qin Shing and said, I haven't answered yet. Qin Shing felt lucky and disappointed at the same time. He didn't know whether he wanted to know Song Ryu's answer or not. Qin Shing, let me ask you. If you were me, would you be willing? Song Ryu threw this question to Qin Shing again. She hadn't thought it through, so she didn't want to answer directly. There were still many factors. Qin Shing laughed at himself and said, To be honest, if I didn't have a girlfriend, I would probably chase after you as soon as I saw you. You're such an excellent goddess. Which man wouldn't want you? You are the other half that countless young talents in Seiju City yearn for even in their dreams. Since you have a girlfriend, why did you ask me the question just now? Is it meaningful? Song Ryu sneered. She had known that Qin Shing had a girlfriend before Song Hushing told her. But she and Qin Shing had been friends before, so it had nothing to do with her. But now that the engagement was in front of her, it had something to do with her. She wanted to know how Qin Shing would deal with it. Qin Shing took a few deep breaths and asked, If I don't have a girlfriend, would you be willing? Can you let her go? Do you dare to let her down? Song Ryu stared at Qin Shing and said. Qin Shing was suffering in his heart, but he had to answer this question. He said, Some choices have to pay the price. So if I don't have a girlfriend, would you be willing? You just said if, so I don't need to answer. After you deal with these trivial things, you can ask me again. Song Ryu replied firmly. Well, Qin Shing was stunned. He didn't expect that Song Ryu would say this. If he really went to Shanghai to break up with Lin Su, and Song Ryu was unwilling when he came back, wouldn't he lose more than he gained? This was another choice for Qin Shing. But then Qin Shing thought about it. Why should he ask Song Ryu when he hadn't made a choice himself? Or did he want to make a foolproof plan? If Song Ryu was willing, he could make a choice. If she was unwilling, he didn't have to make a choice. It was a pity that it was not so easy. If everything went according to Qin Shing's wishes, he wouldn't have these difficulties now. Therefore, it was better to wait for him to make a choice first. When Qin Shing came to his senses, Song Ryu had already disappeared. Qin Shing asked Chang Baji and learned that Song Ryu had left. Qin Shing didn't call her. Although he didn't achieve his purpose of looking for Song Ryu today, he knew what he should do. If he was willing, he would go to Shanghai to break up with her. Even if Song Ryu was unwilling, he had to find a way to make her accept him. If he was unwilling, he didn't have to think about anything. He was a man, so he couldn't put all the pressure on Song Ryu. In fact, the final choice was him. How should he choose? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.